Good morning. We are going to get started. Thank you all for being here. Today is Monday, June the 6th, and we are starting with the Complaint Committee meeting. I'm going to turn over the meeting to Laura Martin, attorney for the board.
Good morning.
Morning.
This was a short month, so we don't have a lot of cases. And after reading through it, there are no cases that are so unusual that I have any flagged. So I was just going to give you guys time to flip through them yourselves and ask me any questions you had.
Laura, I just made a few notes. Case number 10. I had a question about the dates. The shop license expires on of this November or last November? I guess that was my question.
2015.
Did you say number 10?
Yeah, it's case 10. It's page 4. It's just a detail, but I didn't know if, it sounds like the actual personal license was expired.
Yeah,
Oh, I was seeing
I wanna
18.
I wanna say that that was a mistake, but I'm not totally sure, so I'm gonna have to double check on that.
Okay. It just is the difference of $100 of whether it
Yeah.
was both or just one.
So, I'll check on that in the break and change it to $100 if that was a typo. I just can't recall right now if I mistyped that or not. The thing catching that.
I also had a question on case 20. And I was just curious what the previous violations were for, since there were several. If you knew that off the top of your head. This was for unlicensed activity.
No, but by looking at the penalties, I can assume that there was some unlicensed activity and twice before. So this may have been the third time. In which case, to revocation.
I'm not advocating for that. I was just curious, since those previous penalties were significant, as in cases we've seen prior to this. And that in the case, there were 3 people who left.
Yeah,
I don't know
went
if you
with one
assume that, I mean, do you assume that the people who walk out the back door are all unlicensed? I
Our
don't.
inspectors do. When people rush out, they do assume that they're unlicensed. For me, just that there was one person that was being worked on
Oh,
is where I got the 1,000.
gotcha.
If people just walk out the back door, but they weren't witnessed working on anyone, I don't really count that.
I understand.
Check on that one as well. I'm sorry I didn't have the history for that. I must have missed it.
No, I'm not. Trust me, I know you have a lot to go through. That's not my point. I appreciate all you do. And then I just had questions on 2 cases about the amount of the fines. Case 26. Which was $500. This was for unlicensed activity. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is for unlicensed activity. The only reason I didn't go straight for 1,000 is she's learning how to do this.
Okay.
So, to me, that is somewhat of a mitigating factor, if not totally a defense, but that's open to
Is that how we usually handle those if they're in school?
It happens so rarely that
Hard to.
it's hard to, I don't know that we have like a go-to procedure for that, so that was kind of just me trying to do what I thought would make sense.
What do y'all think? I'm a big fan of consistency right now, in that what we've done in the past needs to be consistent.
Well, if it's if mitigating's the least and it's possibly a defense, then maybe the consistency would be half of what it would be if you were licensed.
You're in school and practicing?
Yeah, because that seems like it's the formula she used.
The other side to that, though, is that they should know better. At least the school would have the obligation to hopefully go over what licensing is or what they're to do next, but,
Is it possible they haven't got to that portion of learning that yet?
yeah, it could be.
I'm in agreement with the consistency piece. I just don't know if it should match, because once they're licensed, we know for a fact they've learned it. I think here we're somewhat guessing whether they've known it or not, and
What we've done with the students at that point is brought them back when we know and we can actually catch that they were working unlicensed. We bring them back before the board, before the license goes out. If you'll remember, we've done that 3-4 times, and then the civil penalty has to be paid. And then, of course, we can delay licensing them to make sure that they get the implications of working unlicensed and so forth, and the board gets to approve them directly.
You also have to look at the evidence I'm presenting here. The only evidence I have that she actually is doing this, because she certainly didn't admit to it, she just said, I'm in school, I'm learning how to do this, somebody's just coming after me. The only evidence I have that she actually did this are Yelp reviews.
Love Yelp.
I think that's not quite as strong as an inspector walking in and seeing it happen.
still better than Wikipedia, though, right?
It's better than Wikipedia.
No, I get somewhat of a relief based on it being a student, but
And we have cited the students 1,000. I think Laura's point is exactly that. We didn't see them working. We've had students actually working that we've kept it at 1,000.
I'm fine with that if you guys are. I just wanted to.
I am, providing that'll be what we do moving forward, and so it is consistent. Now, are you saying in the past if we had evidence more than Yelp, then it was 1,000?
We've cited students, yes, yes. Mr. Muniz, for example, recently, and he came before the board once he got his license, he was cited
He
working.
was cited multiple times.
Yes,
He was
yes.
cited multiple times.
Well, no, his brother was. It was brothers. But yes, so the working and catching by a field inspector is a little bit different than this situation.
I have in the past when someone was in school or when someone was licensed in another state and was in the middle of reciprocity and got caught working, I have put forward slightly lower penalties before. So this isn't totally inconsistent. I know consistency is important, so I definitely try to stick to that, but cases are different, factors are different. So I do try to take that into account. If
Well,
you're comfortable with this, we can keep it, but if you're not, that's fine. That was just my recommendation.
For me, it would be if we don't know for a fact that they were taught that and got through that portion of learning it, then I would have a tough time saying you knew if we don't know if they knew. To me, reciprocity is worse because they've learned it through whatever license they got somewhere. But on this, I'm good with this if you all are.
So let me just ask you this question to clarify. If an inspector walked into a shop and someone were unlicensed but in school working on someone, because it's the official inspection, that would be unlicensed activity for $1,000.
You have to look at the case as a whole. That's a factor. So that's a factor here. My honest analysis included both that we only had the internet
Compliance.
reviews and also that she was in school. We've had people walk in and see a student practicing in a shop, and then the student legitimately called in and said, I thought I could be an apprentice. So and we didn't give that person a full $1,000. We have cut people breaks when the circumstances seem to warrant it. But if someone were to walk into a shop, and this person what would be different about that is not only would this person be cited, but so too would the shop, which I think is the more important actor in that scenario.
So what I'm hearing, then, it's somewhere between doing it and sitting in the shop and walking out the back door and you weren't doing somebody, they got away unscathed. because
And if you're talking about the last case, there was only one customer in the shop.
no, that's what I'm saying.
So arguably,
The Yelp is the difference somewhere in between that. It's, yeah, and that's why I see some kind of compromise there, because it is in the middle of that. Because she wasn't caught doing hair, right? You're saying?
no, she was doing lash extensions,
On a client, on a customer.
apparently.
And she wasn't caught. That was
these
the
were
thing.
consumer
These were
complaints.
complaints.
These were consumer complaints. They arrived about the same time. They didn't offer names, and even though they were two separate complaints, it appeared like it was the same person. Though obviously I can't prove that. And then the respondent wrote back saying that the person who is filing these complaints on her, she thinks is coming after her for personal reasons. And then when I Googled the girl's name, I found a handful of Yelp reviews saying that she had done their eyelashes. And so with all that in mind, I came up with 500,
And she did more than one person, we think.
apparently. Probably has been doing this a long time, didn't realize she needed a license for it. When she realized she did, started going to school, but continued her business. That's part for
Consistent.
the course. Especially with eyelashes. I think there's a lot of confusion about that.
I'm good with your recommendation.
Yes, me too.
Bobby?
So on the same note, case 29, you've got 2 unlicensed employees. One has a copy of a reciprocity application, which is why I think you've reduced it from 2,000 to 1,500. Are you guys good with that? I'm assuming the reciprocity application has not been submitted or approved.
No, they weren't. They weren't licensed at the time, and they should have known better. But we're not talking about a person who's like wholly uneducated to the practice, which is why I put it down to 500.
Are they getting relief because they had it filled out? Or they had an application for reciprocity?
I gave them relief because this is a person who's licensed in another state. Definitely should get their license here before they start practicing, and seemed as though they were in. Not different to you guys, we can keep it at 2,000. Legally, this person is still guilty of the exact same statute violation as the person with the $1,000. But in the penalties, when I'm recommending money, sometimes I consider those mitigating factors. So one person has never gone to school and is not licensed anywhere, and they're working in a shop. One person has gone to school, is licensed in another state, and appears to be attempting to get reciprocity in Tennessee, even if it hasn't happened yet. Legally, those people are the same, but they're kind of not in the same position, in my opinion, when it comes to the punishment.
And you
Had
sorry,
money
go ahead.
been sent in on the reciprocity?
Right now, the reciprocity application collects the fee up front, but it's still a lengthy process because it depends on the certifications from the other state coming directly to us. I mean, on a good note, it would take 4 to 5 weeks to do the reciprocal. So it's very likely that the money came in with the application. I don't know that it would change anything until you're actually fully approved. We don't verify your verification eligibility that allows you to work here, you know, any of those pieces until it's all there.
Both sides of this one.
I see both sides as well. Clearly, when I was writing this, I was in a generous mood. Didn't realize that until now. Legally, I think that it's the same, but for as far as deterrent goes, I also see them as a little different, which is why I recommended what I did. If you guys would rather.
Is there anything being assessed to the shop?
This is the shop.
This is the shop, not the actual employees.
Yeah. I'm assuming the employees settled by agreed citation because the cases against the employees.
So can I just speak from personal experience here? We have people who are in my business applying weekly who are moving here to Nashville. I mean, what are the average numbers now? 80 to 100 a day. And we clearly tell them that we cannot hire them or offer them any work until they are officially licensed by the state of Tennessee. I think this is a slippery slope, and I understand that it can take 4 to 5 weeks for someone to get their license moved. But I think if we don't keep this consistent, it's a very slippery slope. Frank, well, I would like Bobby and Frank's opinion as well.
I mean, the first thing I'm hearing is they could have used the 4 or 5 weeks before they moved here to get reciprocity, right?
Absolutely.
They didn't have to-
Most don't. Some do, but it would be beautiful if they started the process beforehand. They really wait till they're here, the vast majority, and then are desperate because they've got a job.
They have to have a local address in order to get reciprocity?
They do not.
They do not.
They
And I
do
think
not.
the onus is on them to
Absolutely.
be prepared
And I mean, on a
to.
good note, it's 5 weeks. That's if you didn't change your name, because if you forgot to tell us you changed your name, the states don't ever connect the pieces. If you have several licenses, then all of a sudden, we see that you were accepted through reciprocity, which means we're still missing another license, and so because of that, it is lengthy.
A
Or could be.
professional license, and I
Yep.
think if you want to act professional, you got to behave professionally, and you should take care of your career ahead of time. I mean,
Well, it seems as though you guys would be more comfortable if I change that recommendation to 2,000.
I would.
Thank you.
I had a question on 30. It says midway through the paragraph, the board agreed to close with a low.
Letter of warning.
Oh,
I'm sorry, that's
gotcha.
my own.
That's okay.
Jargon.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you all approve by just seeing the case numbers at the end.
I thought maybe it was just a new text abbreviation that I was unaware of or something.
Ask your daughter, Frank.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
I will, when we take a break before I present the actual legal report or the report to the full board, I will find out about case 10. And then I can also find out about, on case 20, the history. And then I'll make the change to 29, and then otherwise, are we okay? Okay.
Yes, we'll need a
Make
motion.
a recommendation to accept legal counsel's recommendations with the tweaks that were discussed here at the meeting.
We have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Carried. Thank you very much. And this committee is adjourned. Start with the reciprocity in a few minutes.
No, it's just you and me.
Good
How
morning.
are you today?
We're going to get
Good morning.
started with the reciprocity committee meeting.
All right.
And today is Monday, June the 6th. On your iPads, we are starting with an application for Ms. Dong Yen. We have a total of 4 applications today. Isn't that lovely?
Wow.
So we're going to move right along. This is an application for reciprocity of a manicurist license from California. The certification shows an initial licensure in March of 2005 with 400 hours by examination. An email from Mr. Yen's brother explains that he was not able to obtain reciprocity in Georgia and that he therefore gained work experience working in the shop only as a janitor. Tax records are provided, but because Mr. Yen had no license in Georgia and his work experience in 2014 and 2015 have a Tennessee address, it was something that I could not approve without the board and the committee's review. So my recommendation is that he take the Tennessee examination. And the email is on page 33 on your iPads.
He was working as a janitor, then that wouldn't have given him any
Not real
any
experience.
experience for us.
Correct. I left all the tax records, given that we didn't have that many applicants this time that I couldn't process, just for you to kind of see. Shops in Johnson City in Tennessee.
California only requires 400.
That's correct.
Okay.
Short hours, but I think at a minimum, he needs to take both exams.
I would move that he take both exams.
Okay, and I'll second that, and we're all in favor. Motion carries.
Perfect, thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of an esthetician license from Maryland for Ms. Kelly Goins. Is Ms. Goins here? Okay. I have a couple that were going to try to be here, so forgive me for asking, but I don't want to miss them. The certification shows an initial license in February of 2016 with 300 hours by examination. Ms. Goins has provided school documents listing the more advanced classes that she took, as well as the certificate stating 600 hours were completed. She moved to Tennessee and then enrolled in Miller Mott Technical College between April and May, and there she completed the 150 hours, meeting the full 750 hours required in Tennessee. I would recommend that we approve her for a reciprocal license.
Okay, can you tell me why this one came before us?
Because the actual state certification is only for 300 hours. So what we're looking at is school documents, not an actual state certification that says 600 hours. It looks like a legitimate document, but because the state only certifies 300, she obviously doesn't have enough years for the experience. So that takes it out of what I can immediately consider. And then I believe she just moved here, knew the rules, read the information, which I give her credit for because, you know, she realized she was missing 150, and then enrolled in a school and finished putting her right at the right number of hours. Normally when our students come from another state and they finish hours, the schools have put them through to take the exams in many cases. In her case, she did come from a state in Maryland where she took both the theory and practical. Her certification shows 84 on the theory, practical's an 86. The board could put her through to test if you decided to. I think she meets the requirements at this point, if the board's okay with it.
When I'm looking at this document, is this, I think it's page 14?
Yes, that's from the school.
That's from her school. The
Yes.
school is saying that.
The school is saying that, not the state. That's exactly correct. If you look at the previous on page 12, that's the certification. And they've got the 300 hours. I can't visually catch it right now, but I know it's on there.
Yeah, under the word license number, right over there to the left.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the 300, yes. So that's all they'll certify. Her classes look like she's done, you know, skin disorders, electricity, some things outside of what we would consider the standard aesthetics classes.
Why the state didn't certify the other 300?
Same reason we wouldn't, you know, when we have several schools now that do the mud makeup, and we only certify the 750. So anything above what the state requires for licensure, we can't certify. They then do the same thing as I think this candidate did. She brought her transcript from the school just to show what she took.
What was your recommendation?
That we approve her reciprocal license. If the board is comfortable putting her through to take an exam, we could do that. We've done that in some situations.
I think I'd be more comfortable with at least the theory exam because of the difference in the hours. Because I don't have that really certified from the state, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, yeah.
She took the theory and the practical. Is it the same test? Is it PSI?
Maryland, no, I don't believe Maryland is PSI. I think they're actually the NIC. Let's see, other states.
Well, she was already tested.
Yeah, she
already
has
tested.
already
Okay.
tested. Yeah,
Okay,
she's
well, in that
tested.
case.
And we've got her scores,
Okay.
and she just recently finished it all.
In that case, I would change that. And
Think she needs to take a law portion for Tennessee law, or can they do that?
The way PSI's exams work is, yes, we could ask them to just do the reinstatement. They've got to then really follow up with us, because the system then doesn't want to waive the practical. As you know, that first exam is the theory, so when they take it, getting that practical to waive and getting the application is difficult. PSI has said, we can do it the other way around, where we bypass the theory
Right,
with
do
you
Right.
all, with your approval, and go straight to the practical, because that's that licensing piece.
Right.
But so far, we haven't done anything that just puts them through for the rules and laws.
The full theory would cover rules.
But has she been to school in Tennessee?
Yes,
She went
she
to
has.
Millermont.
She went to Millermont and did the 150, and it's very likely that that's what they covered, is our information, because her transcript from the school in Maryland kind of goes over and above. Obviously, 300 hours compared to ours isn't a lot. So they covered a lot of things that even we don't necessarily. I think she then did her homework and realized, okay, I'm going to miss 150 hours. She hopefully presented her transcript to the school, and the school, that would be my thought, covered a lot of our specific requirements. But if you're both more comfortable with her taking an exam, we can figure out a way for PSI to make an exception.
And we can't guarantee that everybody out there practicing knows every
No.
law and rule, so
No. I think that would move that we approve this.
reciprocity. I'll second that. So motion carries.
Perfect. Next, we have an application for reciprocity with hours from Australia in cosmetology for Stephen Handyside. Mr. Handyside, come on up, sir. It is nice to meet you.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome. If the light goes, question, you'll just push. Give me a second to get them.
Hello, thank
Morning.
you for coming, welcome.
Have before you, Mr. Handyside's documents. He is going to answer any questions you have. He completed 7,296 apprenticeship hours. And you've got before you the documents on how that's tracked in Australia. You also have a certificate issued for him, as well as his full resume, starting on page 24, and then he has a couple of tax records regarding his employment experience as well. And I'll let him answer any questions you have. My recommendation would be that we put him through for the Tennessee exams if you view that his experience is sufficient. That is how we process our international applicants. And we were very lucky to have him be able to come in person and answer your questions.
And you, just so we'll take a shortcut here instead of me reading this, plus I want to hear you talk. Can you just, can you just explain your background, your education for this?
I started hairdressing in late 2000, and then I did a 4-year apprenticeship. So I went to a private school called Taylor Weir in Australia. We did 1 day a week. We did schoolwork, and the rest of the 40 hours, because it's a 40-hour work term, I was in a salon, and then we were trained that way as well.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
1 day in the salon and then the
1 day in the school, we were there for 8
in
hours.
school, yeah.
Yep, and then the rest of the week we're in a salon. Yep, and that didn't include my after-hours training either in the school.
How long did you do that? The 1 day of school and the,
1 day school, the way they worked it, it's 2 years technically broken into 1 day a week. So the first year is 1 day a week for a year, ignoring the holidays that you generally have through school.
Right.
Then the second year was 6 months. And then after that, I went and lived in a country town. So I actually did a month block for my last year. And then I had to wait a year to qualify after that.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What kind of testing did they give you there?
Normally it was set to every program we had. So after we finished our blow drying section, you'd have an exam that you had to bring live models in. Then
Did the government give you any type of comprehensive test for a license?
the way they worked is when you did your final exam, it was of everything you've learnt for the 4-year stretch. So the school had to follow the laws that Australia provide. Western Australia was actually a harder program than the rest of Australia because we were governed by a registration board, so they followed us pretty dramatically.
Feel comfortable taking the Tennessee written and practical exams?
I did one in Canada and I passed, so that's
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Move that we have him take both exams.
I second that, and motion carries.
Good luck. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, we have our last applicant for reciprocity. This is an application for a manicurist reciprocal license from Virginia for Zan Thai Nguyen. The certification shows an initial licensure in June of 2004 with 150 hours by examination. Ms. Nguyen has provided tax records from 2011 through 2015. However, in 2015, she is living in Tennessee and associated her income directly with income from Tennessee. My recommendation is for her to take both exams, and I'll let you review the tax records. I think at the end, there's also,
She here?
no, she is not
Okay.
here. I did not have a response. Sometimes the response is, yes, but we've moved. But the reason I left the two miscellaneous income W-2s is they're clear indications of 1099s issued by a shop, two different shops.
In Tennessee?
Yes. That's my only reason for the request for the exams.
Because she was practicing without a license? Yep, she needs a license.
Move that she would take both exams.
I second that. And motion carries.
Fantastic. Well, unless the board has any other questions, we are done with the Reciprocity Committee meeting, and we will be starting right at 9:30 with the Rulemaking Committee meeting to review some emergency rules. Thank you so much. Sure. Good morning. We are going to get started with the Rulemaking Committee, and there's nothing on your iPads. I actually handed everyone that's on the committee a copy of Public Chapter 991. This subcommittee was meeting to discuss the rules that we're going to need to put in motion because of the public chapter. And so I am going to turn it over to Laura here in a minute. She's worked really hard to put some ideas together, and we want to kind of guide you through it. And then what we're going to do is at the end of the full meeting with the entire board, we will review what the board has, what the committee's come up with. We will go over concerns, ideas. We don't meet in July, so that makes it a little bit easier for any assignments, questions, things to be put together through in the month of July, so that in August we can look at this again. So you should have Public Chapter 991 in front of you, and then you handed the rules, right? Laura has also handed out for everyone on the committee the draft rules to look at, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Did you say chapter 991?
Public Chapter 991.
I have 983.
Me too.
Hold on. 983 is the mobile. Yes, yes.
Okay.
My bad. Sorry. Okay.
So I wanted to give you guys a few minutes when we're done here. The public chapter so that you know exactly where the authority is coming from. And then the other document in front of you is just my first draft of how we can go about it. A lot of it closely follows how we already regulate shops. And then I'll point out the specific areas of interest. In the draft rules, you'll notice that I only wrote them out for the cosmetology chapters. What my supervisor had suggested that for chapter 0200, we just put a rule in there saying that you have to refer to the COSMO chapter. If you guys don't like that, I can also take this exact same language and put it in the BARBER rules. We just want it to be the same. So if you guys want to take a minute to read it, I don't know how many of you have had a chance to, and then we can start talking about the rules.
Or where is 0200? Do we have it? 0200?
0200 is the code for the barber rules. And all I was saying is on my draft rules, I only wrote it out for the COSMO, and then at the very top for 0200. My supervisor suggested maybe we just refer everyone to the rules that we promulgate for COSMO and say that's what it's being held to.
Okay,
But I was gonna
gotcha.
say, if you guys don't like that, I can always just take the same language that we end up agreeing on and putting it in the barber rules. So, the way that Roxanna and I looked at this, because we did meet and kind of go over a lot of this together, is there's three major areas that we need to think about. One is going to be defining the relationship between the main shop and the mobile shop. The second is going to be how we're going to inspect a mobile shop. And then the third is the equipment. So, under the public chapter you just read, the owner of the mobile shop and the primary shop are supposed to be the same person or entity. I think in reality, it's going to be two separate businesses that create a partnership. So, and I'm sorry I didn't number these pages, but if you look on the second page of the draft rules, section B, I tried to create a way where if it's two businesses that are partnering together, they need to disclose some sort of partnership agreement, maybe not necessarily the papers that they're using to incorporate themselves, but some sort of agreement showing so that the board has something in writing that these two people are operating together as one business. And then when that partnership dissolves, I'm placing responsibility on the primary shop owner, the one that has the brick and mortar permanent residence, to inform the board, because otherwise, as soon as things go sour, I mean, you can see how that would go badly. I don't think I have to spell it out. They can say we're not in business together anymore. Other than making them disclose to us their partnership agreement, is there anything else you guys can think of that would help with that situation?
I would maybe recommend, and I don't know if it's feasible or not, but for us to put together what that form should look like or be filled out so we have consistency in the data we're looking for.
Absolutely. In August, we can have a draft of it. It would be pretty similar to the standard shop form, but with all those key components. I like that.
So what we can do is, in the rules, I can say, the partnership agreement shall be disclosed to the board office on a form provided by the board, due at the time of the shop application or the mobile shop application.
That's what you do best, Law, so we'll let you figure out the words. We're the idea people.
The other thing I want to do with the relationship of the two is, so we definitely can't by rule say what services, but I can at the very least say that since they're working together, and that's when you go down to 3 on that same page, I say the mobile shop shall receive correspondence with the board office through the permanent address of the primary shop. So that means anything that we mail to the primary shop that's for the mobile shop, they're agreeing that that is and where they are going to receive mail through us, so that we don't have to operate through some sort of P.O. box or whatever. Wherever the primary shop gets mail, that's where the mobile shop gets mail. Do you guys like that?
Yes,
Is that too
absolutely.
harsh, or?
Ms. Appenfield, can you lower? Yeah.
If it is a partnership, are we going to specify, because we're definitely saying it shall be owned by the same persons or entity, are we going to specify like 10%, or agree to, like maybe 5% of a partnership owning the mobile part and 95% owning the brick and mortar? I mean, to me, that's more like a licensee than a partnership.
I don't think it matters to us what the percentages are, right? We just want to have somebody to tie it back to that's responsible under the umbrella of the mobile unit.
Yeah, so a partnership is an entity, for sure. I don't think that we would be out of line to request information about that. I might want more time to think about whether or not we have the authority to request a certain amount of percentage be applied to each. But it just depends on how much you want to get into that as a board.
Visit too, like if it was a licensee, like if the owner of a shop, brick and mortar, they could actually franchise or licensee these mobile shops. I mean, does that,
I guess they could. They could franchise it. There's so many ways to incorporate a business or a partnership or a LLC, just an entire semester in law school of ways to put a business together.
I understand.
So, I think getting into that might get dicey. I just want something showing us that they're not just two persons who like are on. I want there to be more than a shop application showing that they work together, because the statute requires it's one entity, so I think we need something else showing that they've agreed that they are one entity, however they want to organize it under the law.
Right.
But we can go a little bit further if that's what you want to do. Like, are you wanting them to have,
I just want to be able to understand it, you know, like if,
well, maybe what we could do is on the application, instead of putting it in the rules, on the application with the form where they disclose their partnership agreement, maybe that application can require disclosure of who owns percentages of what. Would that, so that way we have that information?
What good would it do us, though? I mean, there's a million ways to do that. Now, I could see you wanting to know it, but at the end of the day, I
I'm
don't
just
think it's going to make a
curious.
difference on how we govern it.
And let me interject for a minute. So we're getting ready to do this huge online, we're gonna be able to apply for a brand new license online, all those things. And my boss has said, or part of our technology is that key question: why do we wanna know? If it's curiosity, we probably don't need it, because we need to do things with the data we capture. And if we just wanna know, it becomes a little bit troublesome, because what's coming in, we've gotta do something with it. So if that business side isn't going to get us anywhere, it's questionable if we really need it. It's just something to think about.
I think at the end of the day, we're responsible for knowing who it ties to, who's responsible, and how we're keeping the public safe tied to a license that's mobile, right?
And I love the way that Laura has split this. And the reason the relationship is important is because we've been getting calls now since I've been here for 3 years for people wanting to do mobile services. But they've wanted to buy a truck, get it real pretty, and go. So the legislators have bought into this and brought it in with a very unique and I think a good, strong tie to the brick and mortar. So that still means that the person interested in the mobile shop is still gonna wanna get the license and go. This is gonna let us know what is that tie, what is that relationship, and break it down as much as we need it on the application is good. So that
It'd be as simple as Frank wants to buy 17 mobile trucks and hire 17 people to work for him, and they're all tied to his brick and mortar.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So we got to know who to chase down.
Yep. Yes.
As opposed to what Laura was saying before, how that can go awry with partnerships and.
the only other question I had about the relationship of multiple partners is like if you are dialing it down to a smaller operation, you have one owner who has brick and mortar, and they are the manager of the brick and mortar. Do they have to have another manager on the truck?
Truck is
Yeah.
going to have a manager
Yeah.
at all times, and it will have to be a different person. Obviously, they can't, yeah. It will.
I've got a question, Laura. Under number 4 down here on that same page, where it says the primary shop can be held liable, are we saying if the primary is held liable, that's separate from holding the mobile liable, or are we holding them both liable? Or could we hold both liable?
The law, the chapter requires sort of like a top-down approach. If the primary shop has its license revoked, then automatically the mobile shop license is revoked. It doesn't, however, tie it back up. So if the mobile shop gets in trouble and has its mobile shop license revoked, the public chapter doesn't require that the primary shop's license is revoked. But what
would
we
it be?
can do is hold them liable through our complaint process, because technically it's the same owner. 4, if I'm being honest, doesn't really create anything new. It just, I think, puts it out there so that anyone who wants to get into this can read it and say, yes, if I am in a partnership and my mobile salon gets in trouble for something really bad, the board office can open a separate complaint against the primary shop license for those same acts. It's basically just putting it out there that even though it won't be automatic the way it is from the primary shop down, through the complaint process, we can tie liability back. It's permissive. Have to.
Well, then likely there'll be case-by-case situations that just give us that ability to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, makes sense. There's nothing here about signage?
There, somewhere
Or
in
is
the
it-
rules, I think there was,
They have to post their license.
It does say that they have to post their license. It does say they'll be inspected before they open, so all that is the same. Under the section here that we've proposed in writing for you all to consider, we want the inspections to be twice at least, and that'll be up to our team to determine how to best accommodate those depending on the numbers.
so if you look on the very last page of the draft rules, number 18, we put in there, the mobile shop shall prominently display at all times the most recent license issued by the board, showing the name of the mobile shop and the name of the primary shop. That was the only thing I have in there about signage.
Now, the definition of display would be, I mean, it's a weird situation with this mobile, right? So I'm wondering, is this something that should be visible from a window as opposed to somewhere inside? To me, it's kind of, almost has a creepy vibe about it. You got people walking into this truck, doors closed,
Yeah, that is
no
creepy.
windows, like, yet it's under our license and
So we can change that to the mobile shop shall prominently display on the outside. You want it so that you can see it from
I
the
think
outside?
visibly from the outside, so this way you know what you're walking into, because it's not a brick and mortar. Again, more about safety of public or public awareness.
Laura, I may have overlooked it. Are we addressing that the mobile has to be stable while services are being done so that there's no risk
I
while,
did not
like a
put that
while
in
in
there 'cause I did
motion?
not even consider that they would drive their truck while doing services, but we can
That's a good point.
definitely add that in there.
Well, I could absolutely
I think
see it
that's
going down the street.
You know, it's interesting, we only dealt with the opposite. We wanted to make sure it could truly be mobile, as opposed to a parked truck.
As I was doing some research on these things in other states, one of the there's just a few things that seem to be common across the board. One was that the vehicles had some external signage identifying them as a shop. Another was that they had to be physically stable and set put, not moving at all while the service was being done. Another one had to do with making sure the cabinetry inside and the supplies were secured so they're not falling and breaking all over the place. That just seemed to be common in some of them. One of them was definitely that if they had to be stabilized with jacks or leveling systems, that had to
Lori,
be implemented.
a resource for you might be the
I don't
FAR's federal air regulations, because I was a flight attendant, and I mean, there are rules about, like not, beyond sitting in your seat and having your seatbelt on, as far as like what the staff, the attendants do and everything.
But
You might
what-
just
what-
look at
wouldn't
that.
that be
Consider
because-
federal regulations would apply here, but that doesn't mean
No,
it
but
wouldn't.
just as a resource, you
Yeah.
might, just to get some verbiage,
Yeah, but I think if we're committing to the fact that it can't be moving, doesn't that remove, I think it's that way on aircraft, because the fact is they're taxiing and moving while customers are on the plane.
Do you want somebody getting a shave while that car's rolling down Bradley Parkway?
No, I think,
then-
I
then-
think stating that it has to be parked
Parked.
is ideal. I think the minute we say with things blocking it, that
Now you're
takes
different.
away all business thought of, I can go from county to county, or I can go from neighborhood to neighborhood, or, I know on Wednesdays, the senior center needs assistance, whatever it may be, that would be taken away if we really have to have them locked in. But parked, I think is,
One of the things in parked was that they were legally parked.
okay, yeah, there we go. Legally parked, yeah.
So what if I add a separate section that says the mobile shop shall be, legally parked?
Urgency brake on.
Well,
I was just gonna say, and it might be overstating it, legally parked. I don't know if it makes much difference. Might be redundant to say it must be legally parked and fully stationary, and then however
Or park
however
gets it,
that-
don't it?
Yeah.
Maybe the
while-
keys, maybe the
while-
keys secured, so no one. comes in and
The
takes
the
off.
legally parked I was talking about, I actually had to do more in context with, they were in a legal parking lot, not just pulled out in a cornfield somewhere, which I don't mind them being out in the field, but that they
Going to a lot of festivals.
exactly.
I see them parking in people's driveways for wedding parties. I see them parallel parking on movie sets.
Exactly.
And I think that if we just put in there that while rendering services, it's stationary and legally parked, they can't be moving and driving from, none of that. And then I can see if there's any other federal regulations that would miss something that I'm not even thinking of, because like I said, it did not occur to me that they would drive and
Dave?
shave someone at the same time. I'm gonna move on to the second issue here for a minute that I talked about for equipment. So, starting on, I totally forgot page numbers here. I'll find the page here in a minute, but what I did was, I put the exact same requirements for equipment.
Third page.
And then if you look
So
on the
third
third
page,
page, it's A, B, so it's the exact same equipment that's required in any shop. But, what Roxana sees a lot of, even in our stationary shops, and what I think is really gonna take off in the mobile shops, is people wanting to open a shop to do one very specific thing. In which case they won't need every single piece of equipment. So if you look all the way down at the bottom of page 4, in parentheses D, I wrote the executive director to the board may in his or her discretion waive one or more of the foregoing equipment requirements to accommodate mobile salons offering limited services. So that would give Roxana the authority. The only reason I didn't give the board authority is that means every time somebody's applying for a license, they would have to wait for the board meeting, the board would discuss it, and then they would have to wait on the inspection. Here, the executive director can say, oh, your van is only applying eyelashes, well then maybe you don't need, I don't know, a reclining chair or stuff like that. How do you guys feel about that?
We may be opening up a can of worms of the point of entry being a lot easier going that route and then conducting the services they want to conduct anyway.
Certainly, but we're still gonna inspect them, which is
Right.
our third topic we're gonna cover here in a minute.
Our thought was, once this is a go, and it's supposed to be by January 1st of 2017, the field inspectors are going to need some training and hands-on. And so we want to be able to inspect in different ways, know where they are, one, and then when we see them, stop and have the right to inspect. The price listing of what they're doing, I think, is going to be key to what the inspectors are looking for. So if your price list includes waxing and manicure and pedicure, that's the equipment you need. You're not doing haircuts, nothing else should be needed and should have been waived when the inspection was done. If, you know, that's not the way we have you as a full shop, then the inspection, the application wasn't done right. So we're really gonna focus on that application being correct and you telling us what you're planning on doing, because that's how we'll be able to do the inspection.
Is that how brick and mortar is done at the moment?
At the moment, we rarely do exceptions. The board has even heard a few exceptions for shops that are the skincare shops and wanted the waiver of certain equipment because they don't offer the service. And we said we don't want to hear these consistently and waive them. If you're a skincare shop, you really are expected to have all these. We've made few exceptions. If the board will remember, we did a barber shop that didn't need the water for the shampoos because they strictly do the military base, straight cuts. And so they presented a case that made so much sense that we waived it for that situation. But generally speaking, we don't waive those requirements. I think the mobile would be different because I really think they are going to open to just do makeup. And therefore, the waxing equipment's not going to be needed. They're going to open to do the eyelashes. And then, so that would be their decision. And if that's what they can prove, that that's their, what they're marketing, what their plan is on the application they're putting that, then I would have the authority, or the director would have the authority to waive the other things. And if they're doing something else, we could cite them when we inspect them, because obviously that wasn't the equipment put in.
My concern would be we're not going to get the same type of spontaneous inspection that we can with the brick and mortar.
Right. In the inspection piece, we've put that anytime the field inspectors see the mobile shops, mobile salons, they have the right and should be stopping them for that immediate inspection.
But if they're not requiring outdoor signage, how do we know it's a mobile unit?
Yep.
They're required to have outdoor
A
signage.
license, right?
No, signage
No,
as
signage.
well.
Oh,
We
signage
are
as
going to
well,
require-
okay.
Yes, I think that's a
Okay,
great idea.
I
Yeah.
asked, I didn't realize we
Yes.
got to that.
Yes, yes.
So now,
I mean,
now what's?
your fear is valid. It's that
Absolutely.
is definitely a risk. We're not trying to say it's not a risk. I would like to find a way to be a little bit more flexible because these are going to be much smaller than this. These are going to be much smaller just space-wise than a regular shop. So it just seems like a natural fit for someone who wants to do one thing and one thing only.
It is, and the reason why
I'd like to find a way to accommodate that if we can.
I think we have to be cautious how easily we accommodate it, though, because of the current climate of the beauty business, with suite rentals and chair rentals, and it just becomes an easy point of entry to quote get into business. And if you can get in extremely easy versus having to outfit it properly, I think we run the risk of maybe dumbing down the industry, and that would be my biggest caution.
I think there, hopefully, the way the legislators passed it, tying it to an actual shop license is going to be what's going to keep this. It really is, because then that shop is potentially losing their license and really has a lot at stake when they decide who to do business with.
Do
What,
you have an idea of how to, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do you have an idea of how to make that a little bit more stringent?
I guess my idea would be really hefty fines if they get caught doing anything different than what they told you they were doing them.
is the application
Different than a slap on the
like an
wrist.
affidavit? Is it like, I don't remember any of the applications. It's like an affidavit statement.
The only application we have right now with the affidavit is the reciprocal license, and that's we've had issues with reciprocal license. We've taken the affidavit swearing out of all of our applications because, to be very honest with you, few people now are still
Boris.
notaries. One, we're going to electronic documents, and they're going to
Gotcha.
be submitting this online anyway to apply. And then they're just witnessing your signature. They're not witnessing anything else at the time of, that application. They don't know that what you've completed is true and accurate.
I was discussing with Ron earlier about the situation with the brick and mortar and inspections, and I know the inspector is going to come in. So you have a brick and mortar; it's connected to multiple units. What is going to define that it wouldn't just be a call center? I mean, if you have a licensed manager sitting there and no one ever really performs services, but you've got one, what defines that they really are doing services there and they really don't just have a call center?
Don't they have to have all the equipment to certify as a license?
They're going through a lot of expense
Be an
to put in
expensive
all
call
the
center.
equipment
Yeah.
to just be a call center, but they could, at the end of the day,
Okay.
open.
So we're
have a
not gonna
great
define
license. Yeah, when we go, often, there are no clients in a shop.
Right.
But it is defined, though, Mona.
Yeah,
It's defined with the list of needs to open a shop,
Right.
to get
They have
licensed
to
to
have all
begin
the
with.
equipment,
So
Okay.
I think, if anything, it's probably heavily defined.
I think.
Okay.
Is there anything stated if they do decide to change their services, like if they're a brow and lash thing, and then they decide that they want to add facials? What's the process for them doing it?
Similar to now with a brick and mortar, if you extend the services you offer, then you would need to be re-inspected.
And, okay, so there is.
The shop would-
it's
right, the mobile
stated in
shop.
here somewhere?
No, but I can
We
add
can
that.
add it.
Yeah, just so it's not assumed.
I could do D1. I could add a.
The application for the mobile shop, I think, is 250, so it's much higher than our normal brick and mortar shops. I think that will make them think about what they want to put in. And at least during the first year, the thought is to hand them the rules that specifically apply to them. The shops are supposed to have and know all the rules and have them all available. With the mobile salon, we may want to be more specific and say, as you fill this out, really look at it. Everything that happens there affects the major license on the brick and mortar. Go through those to educate the public as well, as we see these increasing in numbers.
And I think it's important that we're having the detailed conversation because it is uncharted waters. And I'd hate to put this in play and then through intellectual property feedback, we find out we missed A, B, C, and D. You know, so I think it's good work.
And my thought is, and Laura and I talked a lot about this, with July not having a meeting, you all obviously will leave with a lot already gathered right now, but then we'll have to start the full committee, and at the end, we'll address it again. And then I'm going to email everyone, Laura, the bullet points that we've discussed for the rules, the actual public chapter that'll be emailed to everybody that signed up for notification here in a couple of weeks. And then through July, any other research, questions, doubts that we have, if they can, everyone can provide them to me so that by the August meeting, we've got something a little bit more set and have had a chance to process it all.
With your discretion and equipment and those kind of things, in a brick and mortar, the distance between two stations has to be 5 feet. Now, I can see that center to center on their station or on their chairs. So I can see that in some of these smaller units, space could become an issue, but I don't know how close would be too close at that point. Having worked behind the chair a long time, 5 feet is pretty close. And it's not that you're too close to Mona here or something like that. It's the fact that you're actually, hair flies, hair moves, hair goes everywhere, and other chemicals and materials from time to time. So we need to be cautious about that at least.
Wouldn't that currently be under the governance of the rules now, as far as?
It is,
Oh.
but I just want to say that if we find a situation where somebody says, can I put these chairs side elbow to elbow, that's probably too close.
Well, especially with shears and raises. I mean, that's the biggest issue for it being
They'll
too
run
tight.
out of space in these facilities. I can see that.
Do you want,
Well, it's in the Barber and Cosmo already, but I don't know that we need to add it here, except that maybe for Roxana's benefit, that whenever they're requesting, hey, can I move these chairs closer, or they're going to certainly ask her, do these have to be that same distance? Then
Maybe just state it in there that they have to be the same distance as in the primary, so that they can't ask.
We're
what
going
would
to
you prefer?
permit,
And right now, if they did, the spacing would have to come before the board, similar to odd applications that I can't approve. This would fall along those lines, you know. I hate to delay them for meetings, but if in doubt, I'd rather put them before the board if that's the case. And maybe, you know, depending on what they're doing, if it's makeup, it may be that they
that
can be
might work.
closer, and you would hate to delay it.
Exactly.
If it's
That's my
shaving and
point.
hair cutting, eyelashes, same thing. They probably can be closer in space. So there's gonna be some flexibility
Maybe
to some of these.
specify, if you're doing makeup, it has to be this. If you're doing brows, it has to be that. If you're doing hair,
But what if it's a multitude of all of those things together?
then they might have to have a section.
Yeah, but basically, wouldn't the same rules as the primary salon be for the mobile? And if they wanted anything different, they would have to bring it before the board, as you know, you would right now, because the mobile salons, I'm not expecting for 10 stylists to be in there. I mean, if that's the case, go to a building. So, I mean, it's like, give them options, but not so many options where it just becomes very complicated. I mean, the rules are the rules, and you just have to abide by the rules. And if you want it to be changed, go to legislature for it.
will the rules permit them to set up outside the mobile unit, kind of a patio thing, like at festivals? You can.
No.
No.
What about parking in a lot and going inside a building?
I didn't put
talked about-
anything in the rules about that.
We talked about that in a previous meeting, and we said no to that. If they're going to be doing the mobile services, it need to be in the mobile vehicle.
And we will, that will be the immediate question. We want to park it and go in their home. Right now, the statute allows them only to go in the home when they are homebound.
Right.
And we clearly always explain that, but these are written in a way that it is where you're parking somewhere and the clientele's coming to you. Whether you market it that way, the brick and mortar markets it, whatever you decide.
The services must be done inside the vehicle.
Is that what you guys want?
Yes.
The idea of someone being able to set up in front of their van.
No.
No.
Not at all.
No, because then you're gonna have one van with one chair in it, and then 4 people cutting hair outside.
Taking care of whole block.
It'll become an inconsistency nightmare for all of us to try to manage.
And then once they go inside someone's home, we cannot regulate their home and what they're doing inside. And it becomes a public safety matter.
Laura,
Right now, nothing allows them to do it. We do have the last topic to cover, and that's inspections. This one is actually the toughest to me. Right now, what Roxanne and I came up with is that when we have inspector training, we're gonna tell them as you're driving around in your area, you should, every single time you see one, you should stop in and inspect it, because it's the only way we can hope that there's gonna be at least a few pop-up inspections. And then the other thing we're gonna do is when the mobile shop renews every 2 years, I have them submitting a date and location where they'll be. That way I'm hoping each salon every year will be getting an inspection that they've scheduled and then also an inspection that they weren't planning on. Do you guys have any other ideas about how to do that?
what I've seen in other states, and I'm not suggesting that we do this, but at least 2 states I've looked at require GPS locators on them. I don't think that's would be feasible for us. Another one is that the mobile shop has to submit their basically their appointments or their itinerary for the next period of time, whether it's a week or a month or something like that. That can get very onerous too. In Florida, one experience I've had down there was that if someone was working outside of the shop, in that case it was the individual could go to a nursing home to cut. They had to be registered on the appointment book at the physical primary shop. That their daily calendar would be visible there, so that the inspector, if he walked in, he could, if he checked the mobile shop in the field, he could look back and see, well, is that where you were supposed to be? I can see that getting really complicated, and I'm not sure how we could manage it, but other states do.
Similar to that I added is in a separate area. I wrote that the manager or whoever's operating the primary shop, inspector walks into that shop and we know that they have a mobile salon connected, that manager has to disclose to the inspector, because they should be in communication enough where the primary shop can be like, oh yes, they're at such and such parking lot on Tuesdays, and then that way the inspector can go out there.
Those are just things I've seen. I wouldn't make any recommendation. It's just something I've seen.
The food trucks, a lot of times, they're on Twitter or online, and they're saying, hey, we're going to be here today, or blah, and the inspector can look at that and try to find them that way without, if it's a surprise inspection.
Good idea.
We're trying to investigate them.
Right.
I use Twitter and Facebook all the time because
Yeah.
people put everything on there.
Yeah.
But
So-
if we're just doing a routine inspection, I don't see our inspectors getting on Twitter for routine inspections.
Is
I'm
this
not
a
sure
thought that they
GPS isn't a good idea, though.
Yeah.
Do you like the idea of adding GPS?
I do. Because we're licensing a unit to do services under our umbrella. We should know where that unit is.
I don't know
How
how
does
the other
that
states
work?
do.
They have
It works real
GPS
easy. I
in
have them on all my
mobiles?
kids' cars, and they don't know it. I can show you exactly how to do it.
That's a little weird, Frank.
I
So
don't
how
know.
does that work? Do they have GPS in the salons and then they have to give the board office
The GPS
access?
the GPS is on the vehicle itself, and the board would have access to it, I guess. I really haven't investigated that.
We can look into that
It's through
so
an
that
app.
by August we can address it,
So,
definitely.
and it might be part of their startup. It's very inexpensive, so it's not like we're, I'm just thinking, is that like over governing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're licensing something that's movable. I think asking where it is isn't really out of line. For inspections, because then you can get a pop-up inspection, because we know where it is. But I think if we got to make an appointment to let them know when we're coming, nobody calls me to tell me when they're showing up.
No, we'll definitely look at the feasibility so that the shops also know if you're getting this license, by the way, this comes with it. The board has decided that you would have a GPS and
It's worth looking into, I
Yeah,
think, for us to be able to make a
have
decision.
that information.
I think maybe, as we're doing this, we ought to keep in mind, and I think we all are, is that the idea behind a mobile shop was to make things a little more flexible and let people have opportunities and over-regulate and over-govern certain things we have to do, certain things we don't. Balance that flexibility, I guess.
But to that point though, Ron, I mean, if we're licensing a salon, we have an address where the salon is, right? We know where to go and look into it if there's a complaint.
Isn't Find My Phone a GPS basically? Like Find My Phone a GPS basically?
Yeah, it's GPS based.
Yeah.
Laura, there was one other thing that actually I'd seen in here I think is a good idea. Since they're going to be having enclosed potable water and they're going to have, I know they don't have to have restrooms and such, but they've got to have this place to dispose of this water. I think we need to require they put that in a sanitary sewer system, not just take it to the car wash or the side of the street and dump it.
Color. Chemicals.
Sanitary sewer system. If you have a Winnebago and you're camping, you have to go to a dump station, something like that. That's one way, but I'm sure there are other ways besides that.
Okay, so we are definitely over time, so we probably need to wrap up. I'm gonna try to add some of the bullet points on here that are less complicated, and then I'm going to look into the GPS, and I think that was the only one that I want to look into, but we'll try to add something about those in there. And then once I get that done, we'll email out what the changes we made to the board. And that's it.
Thank you very much. We're going to stop for maybe 5 minutes and then start with the full committee board meeting. Thanks.
Brothers, LEWIS, and then it gets clever.
Morning.
You say, how do you
We are going to get started here. Thank you for being here. Today is Monday, June the 6th. This is the State Board of Cosmetology and Barber Examiners June meeting. I will turn it over to Chair Gillihan to get us started.
This meeting of the board is called to order. We'll always begin by acknowledging our guests, and it looks like we've got a very nice crowd here today. Thank you all for coming. Do we have any schools and students that are here represented today? Wow. If you would, and you're from a school, would someone stand and tell me which school you are? Millermont in Madison. Do we have another? Clarksville. Okay. Do we have another school? Thank you so much for coming. Okay. What about you folks? Sheer Perfection. That's in Cookville, White House. Okay. Very nice. That's one of the TCAP programs.
High school.
Oh, the high school.
High
Okay.
school, yeah.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, folks, for coming. We're glad to see you. Good to see you, Mr. Woods. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoy your board meeting, and I hope we don't bore you too much. We need to have an approval of the May 9th, 2016 minutes. Do I have a motion? Oh, we have a question?
I do have a question. There was just, I had a question about some language on the reciprocity part. Like, the third one on the reciprocity, it said, I don't have it in front of me, but like recommended license. Do you see the third reciprocity, the eighth? I don't understand the eighth reciprocity at all. And then the ninth one, it says recommend license.
Which name? Do you know? You have the name? No.
No, it's under the part where we made a motion,
Okay.
under the third one.
Okay, I see.
Is
To
that-
approve recommendation. It should be just to approve recommendation, which was to license them. So we're gonna take out the word license. I see what you're saying. It says motion made by Ron Gillahan in this case and seconded by Patricia to approve recommendation license. The word license needs to
I
come
don't
out.
think that was reciprocity necessarily, was it?
The recommendation was to approve reciprocity.
It was?
And on this particular case, this is a Colorado license for Crystal Stanfield.
Okay.
And the next one has the same word, the word license. And so we'll look at our notes to make sure that the board voted to approve the recommendation, which would mean that word license is an extra word in there.
Okay, yeah, it just threw me because I didn't
Yeah,
know.
no,
what-
I'm glad you caught that, because in the next one, it was for them to take the Tennessee exams.
Right. And then the 8th one, oh, let's see. I don't know why I didn't put the name. I had a question about that one. 2, 3.
Eighth one you said, let me count, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Eighth one has the word license in there.
Okay, maybe that was
So
it.
is the ninth, yeah. We'll take it out of those three
It just threw me.
and make sure. No, you're absolutely right. Good. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or corrections or deletions? We had a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Who motioned it first? Ms. Granger, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
And Ms. Roxanne, I guess we're back to you.
Let me do a quick roll call if I could. I will start, Ms. Kelly Barger is not here today. Ms. Anita Charlton,
Here.
Nina Coppinger,
Here.
Mr. Bobby Finger, Mr. Frank Gambusa,
Here.
Mr. Ron Gillahan,
Here.
Ms. Brenda Graham,
Here.
Ms. Wyvette Granger,
Here.
Ms. Judy McAllister,
Present.
Ms. Patricia's not here today, and Ms. Mona Sappenfield,
Here.
and Ms. Amy Tanksley.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. We will get started with our appearing before the board. On your iPads, if you could, starting with page 3. We have before you Mr. Chip Woods. Mr. Woods, come on up. Sure the red button is on.
Sure, you bet.
Good morning, and thank you for coming in today.
Yeah, glad to be here.
You have before you information on 2 new programs. This is for the Salon Professional Academy. The outline and the courses are there that they would like to add. The school has recently been approved to offer the mud makeup and plans to offer the 300-hour program to cosmetology and estheticians interested in continuing their education. The second edition is also 300 hours, and it is for makeup artistry program. Any questions, other ideas that you have, I will turn it over to the board and let you review this information. I believe when we've done this in the past, we don't necessarily need to motion it or approve it, but it's information we always want the board to be aware of, and it's a great thing for the schools to offer these.
So Chip, when they take these courses, do they just get a certificate, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so just to be honest with you, I didn't know if I needed to present it before the board or not, since it doesn't lead to licensure. But my thought is too much is better than not
Right.
enough.
It's good to know, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They're not obligated to take this if they don't want to. That's a
No,
question we always
absolutely not.
ask.
But we plan on having one standalone program of the 300 hours, which is available just to cosmetologists and estheticians after licensure. But we're also looking to add another program which would take our 1,500-hour program cosmetology to 18, which would simply incorporate the 300 hours and the 1,500 hours together. So 2 cosmetology programs. One would be cosmetology / makeup artistry, and then one 1,500-hour standalone 1,500-hour cos program.
Questions?
Okay, so with adding the 300 hours to make it 1,800 hours, is that to receive a license, or you just want that program to be included as an option?
Right, we were wanting that to be included just as an option. They wouldn't get anything different from the board other than the cosmetology license, but they would get a cosmetology license plus a certificate from MUD. So as far as the board's concerned, I don't think there would be any difference.
That just makes it somewhat easier financially if they're on the front end, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Since we didn't need a motion for this, it was just information, so,
much
good
for
luck.
presenting.
Thank you for coming down and being proactive.
You bet. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chip.
Good luck. Next on your iPads, you have our applications to test, and we have quite a few of these. This particular section is on our applicants with felonies. We have 2 for this month, Mr. DeMarcus Gant and Ms. Ashley Avers. The applicants have felonies at least in the last 3 years, or they are incarcerated. The request is for us to approve them to take the Tennessee examination. The required information, disclosure from the student, and letter of recommendation are submitted for your review. Upon the board reviewing and approving us to send them an agreed order for the probationary period, they'll be released to take the exams. If for either of these you would like the standard agreed order changed, please let me know. Otherwise, it is for a 2-year period.
And incarcerated?
Yes, he is.
Motion to approve these for testing?
Second, with a signed agreed order.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have our international applicants. We have before you an applicant to test as a cosmetologist with hours from Mexico. For Diana Alvarez, Ms. Alvarez has provided translated diploma and a letter from an employer stating work experience between 2009 and 2013. Her application states that she completed 1,480 hours, but there's no full transcript of all of her hours completed. I will let the board review and make a decision on what you would like to do.
On her application, Roxana, it states she's not a United States citizen. She does have a green card or passport, though, so it should be fine.
If the board grants reciprocity, we would need the verification eligibility immediately. If they test, many of you have seen we've delayed some things due to that verification eligibility form. It basically asks if you're a U.S. citizen, qualified alien, the documents provided or required for the qualified alien it's an entire page that lists them. But we have in the last few months especially had to deny licensure for many applicants who have permission to work and pay taxes, but not necessarily really permission to enter an industry that's regulated like ours. And so unfortunately, when the documents can't go through that verification eligibility, we have to deny at this point. She has not, right now we've not done her verification eligibility. At this point, she's applying to test, and in essence, they are able to go to school. They're able to test. It's at the licensure stage that we delay this. So I've tried, especially lately, more and more have the conversations with the schools. The schools have every opportunity to still do the education, and I think an obligation to explain what the verification eligibility form does. Any of the sessions that I do with instructors, I've been showing the form, explaining the form, trying to get it out there. It's on our webpage so that students can make that decision. They might still want to go to school and move back home. But in any case, at least right now, without the approval to work here, we have to deny licensure.
She only has 740 hours. Is that where?
Actually, well, her application has 1,480. The diplomas, the paperwork was a lot of papers, mostly in, I've put in what's been translated into English. They're a little bit different than a transcript we would like to see that has in one place everything. This isn't the case. It's got diplomas with the different classes passed. So when you add them, you don't come up with the 1,480. I just think it's the way the school and the particular documents she sent in. So she's slightly lower than what we require. She does have the letter from an employer with work experience. It's a matter of accepting the letter, I guess, as in lieu of some of those hours. But on her application, she has listed 1,480 hours finished.
How long of a work record?
This document says that she's worked between 2009 and 2013, so it would be 4 years. Again, with our international applicants, we don't use an agency to do the outside vetting and so forth. So that's the reason I think the board has been comfortable always putting them through to test.
If we would approve, it still would be predicated upon papers.
The 2 exams, and then at the time of licensure, that verification eligibility would be required. For our qualified aliens, if they've got the required documents, if we see the green card and one more document, we can put them through. If the green card's the only thing there, which is normally the case, when you're given that card, your other documents have generally expired because you've been here a while, so their visa's gone and the passport. So we put them through to a federal database, and that lets us know if they're allowed to work and get this license or not.
I'd make a motion then to approve based on.
Testing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Would second that.
A motion to approve with both tests. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next on your iPads, we are on page 34. This is an application to take the exam as an esthetician with hours in aesthetics and a license information from Korea for Yen Kyung Kim. Ms. Kim has provided translated certificates, and this shows the graduation from 2001 with a major in cosmetics. The breakdown of hours includes some cosmetology and aesthetic hours, but there's no clear total on what the total number completed is. The board has left messages but has not heard back regarding the exact number of hours that she has completed. On her application, oh, and that's the case. We hated to delay her until August, but we don't have everything we need. If the board is okay with approving her to take the aesthetics exam with these documents, the office wouldn't proceed, obviously, until we have an actual application. Addressed the letter just probably because she saw that you were the chair for the board. That's my guess.
It's kind of difficult to discern what all these curriculum numbers mean and things like that. Does anybody have a station?
The Korean schools are very progressive. I've never hired anyone with these types of credentials, but they're very progressive schools, and I have colleagues that went to school in Korea.
She's gonna.
But
I'm sorry.
but they are true that they are her documents and everything. She would
She would
be able to pass our test if she did go to school in Korea. Sure.
She's asking to be allowed to test for the cosmetology.
for the aesthetics.
Oh, just aesthetics, okay.
For the aesthetics. She says she has 2.5 years that she worked in aesthetics prior to coming here. And then, at least from one of these documents, it appears that it is health-related, that they have some type of health department that licenses them.
I move
That is
that we
true.
let her take the test.
I'll second it.
Any Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next is an application to test as a manicurist with hours from Vietnam for Loyen To. Ms. To has provided a translated diploma and certificate of completion showing 714 hours received in January of 2016. The next three applications are almost identical, and so I just want to go ahead and bring them before the board. We have approved, I believe, two other individuals with identical documents. That's not to say it's necessarily good or bad. They're the identical documents. So I will let the board take a look and see if there's anything you'd like to do differently or have any reason for concern.
Done any research to know that this school exists, or?
We have not, and this may be a good opportunity to talk about it. There are definitely offices, businesses that do this background kind of check. We could, given the identical almost everything on these, put them through to do a review of the school actually being an approved school, an existing school. And I know from the meeting that Laura and I went to that there are situations where those documents come up to be false, just like there are situations where they quickly reveal to be true. The cost in the cases where we've heard that some agencies and boards are having to do that is passed on to the applicant as part of the application process. I'll let the board kind of think about it and see if you want to do it when there's a concern. We definitely don't always do it.
Approximately what kind of fee is involved?
I don't think it was under $100.
We should definitely do it.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the legitimacy of this. You know,
I mean, they're identical. Like I said, if in that case the school or the documents come up to be fraudulent and the school is not existent, the board office would have the obligation to go back to the applicants we've passed with these, which may not be that easy, but we document their education background in some of our data, so that's where we'd have to pull from, and open complaints. So if the board is comfortable with that, we can do a letter explaining that the board is asking for background information on these schools and contact them with the agency that does this, and then they would be able to directly contact them. And if it's not something they want to pursue, obviously, they would stop before paying the fee.
We need to make a motion for that.
Yes, we do.
Make a motion to investigate these schools,
Second it.
this school, yeah.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Can I ask, could we make a motion for whenever that situation feels like it presents itself, to give the authority to go ahead and do that on the one?
You can, yes.
I think we're at a point in time where we should, because
Well-
sorry?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just think we've had too many stories come up, and I know a lot of times naturally you want to give the edge to the person. You know, you don't want to hold them back, but at the same time, if it's legitimate, then we won't be holding them back. And I just think it would be responsible of this board to do it in that fashion.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, on our application where it says, have you helped a cosmetologist, manicurist, shampoo tech, blah, 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 license in another state, she says yes, and then she doesn't put the state or license number. And then doing just some quick research in Google, this World Nail School is permanently closed. But it's signed, it's dated January 12th, 2016. So.
I think we just found the person to hire right here.
And I think the plus to an agency
Good
that
work.
does this is it kind of keeps us out of it. They'll do their research. Like I said, I thought the fee would always be a lot higher. I was surprised. It's not like it's $10, but it's below the 100. If the applicant knows it's going to be a research process and come up fraudulent, that may change their opinion of the application. But if they follow through, then it would be part of the licensure process if we're concerned. And I've got here in our notes then that we will put any time a school is of concern or the board does not regularly see this and has no way to verify it ourselves, then we will request that the applicant pay for the fee for the background check of the school and put them through.
For the legitimacy of a professional license, I don't think it's I don't think it's overly priced either. It's not $10, but it's also a professional license.
Right, I agree. Okay, so we have the three applicants before you are Ms. Lone Tall, Mr. Fwick Toe, and also Trin Tran. Those three will receive the letter this time requesting and giving them the direct information on where they are to submit their documents. And then they'll work that way. Did you get a motion? We'll still need a motion to do all three. Ms. Coppinger, you motioned it.
I make a
didn't you?
motion to,
Okay, and Frank seconded.
for it to apply to all three.
And that'll apply
I
to all
second
three,
for
yeah.
all three.
All in
Okay.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have applications to test as manicurist with hours from Georgia for 3 individuals. This is a little bit different, and so I want to tune us back and explain why I kind of held these. These applications from Georgia are strictly to test, so these individuals do not have a license in Georgia. They are for Ms. Nuyet Lee, Dang Lee, and Fwek Fui. These 3 applicants provided the exact documents and exact email address. The board office then had some concerns, contacted the Georgia State Board for verification of the hours. The email is the first thing that you see on page 54. The email correspondence is from the regulatory board in Georgia, and they acknowledge that the school is a licensed school, but they said that those hours were not reported to them and that is an acceptable practice, which was odd to us, because as school owners in particular can vouch, we report hours every month. There's no limit to any of that, and they don't go away at any point. But schools have to report hours to the board when the individuals have passed the exams and are going to get a license. So it's kind of at the end. So that is not an unheard of practice, and that's as far as I could get with an explanation from the board. Further asking questions and reaching out, I was able to speak with the school owner. And actually, she contacted me because these applicants knew they were being delayed. I explained the reason. Identical email used on all 3. The documents are identical. They're right at 600 hours. Georgia only requires 525. But because we're a neighboring state, many of their students end up moving here. So it isn't unheard of for them to do the 600 hours. We've seen that before. But this was the first time that I had seen this school and that everything was so similar. The school has decided moving forward, because they actually teach in Vietnamese and have a lot of students going there that are moving, that they're going to be submitting hours to the state board regularly, just to not see this happen again. So they definitely wanted to be proactive, understood if the board wanted to delay these, but at least in conversations, the state board didn't give me any reason to be concerned about the school, and the school is going to start handling them differently. I just knew I needed them to be presented to the board for your decision. Do we allow the applicants to test, or is there anything further you want to see?
You feel comfortable, you've spoken to the school owners.
I spoke to the school owners. She is very ingrained in the community, but she herself is American. She's just married into Vietnamese and understands the culture very much, so she's opened the school with that in mind. She explained actually more to me than the board did, just because she's obviously interested in her students being able to do this when they're moving to Tennessee, and many go there because of the language, because it's offered in Vietnamese. And she said what happens is that we don't have to submit hours if we know the students aren't going to get a license here, which kind of matched the email that the state board gave me, which is it's a licensed school. We have no reason to be concerned. It's not unheard of that schools will do 600 hours because they're moving to a state that asks for the 600 hours, but that's all they could tell us, so they couldn't certify the hours. So we've got the transcripts. They're going to, that school now kind of learning that we are a pocket for their students, is going to submit the hours regardless, just to not have future concerns.
Does this line up in your wheelhouse? I mean, this looks like.
I've never heard of anything of them not, being.
Did the school owner say they were enrolled in the school?
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes schools have situations where in their contracts they don't release students' hours and give them their credentials and things because they may have money for them. So they essentially have a collateral in the hours. for that reason too. But in this one, the one I'm looking at on page 58, it says that the student received their diploma on February the 5th. So apparently they gave them their credentials from the school.
But they don't have their license in Georgia.
That is correct. So they could not apply for reciprocity. They're choosing to go to school, according to the school owner, because of the language, mostly. They can study the curriculum in Vietnamese. But if they test there, the concern would be then we have to get the license, which takes longer. So they're wanting just to come here, and we now have the testing in Vietnamese and in Spanish, so.
I occasionally have people call me, like every week or every other week, saying I want to come from another state, or will my hours transfer from here to another state so I can take a test there. Always up to the states.
And we've done this in the past. I mean, it would be consistent to do it, continue with it.
We do. This is bigger. It's the 3 in a row, and almost everything was shared from them. So anytime I end up with a concern, I bring it before the board. So sometimes we're seeing, I think, a shift in these applicants to test being more versus what the reciprocity committee. I mean, today we saw 4, but we're going to see a lot more of the applicants to test. And that may be good, because if they're testing here and we have input on the exam and we review it and our rules and laws are in there, I think that's good.
We have a motion.
I'll make the motion to let them test.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Roxana, thank you for your thoroughness.
Yes.
And if the board needs a break at any point, please remind me. So we are on to our miscellaneous, and we have here a request from the Dollywood Company. I have before you Miss Jennifer West. No? Okay. So she was hoping to be able to make it, but if she hasn't, I think we've got everything that we need to see. This is a request for a waiver for certain equipment. The shop is licensed in, there's a shop actual with brick and mortar licensed in Dollywood. Ms. West was going to attempt her best to appear before the board and answer any questions regarding the equipment. I've added some of the pictures she sent for the board to review. What they are wanting to do is kind of do an extension, which is this little barn. And outside of their shop, it's a closed-in area, it's a barn, it kind of goes with the theme around the pool. And they're wanting to offer pedicures out in that section, and only offer pedicures. The gentleman in charge and I spoke because he's also wanting to have kind of a carry-on kit to do makeup, and by makeup it's face painting. And so of course we don't regulate that, so that sounded like something that he can definitely do. All their concepts look fantastic. They're opening kind of just something top of the line, so they're wanting to be creative. And this closed-in area has, on page 68, you see where the water facility is there. They've got the foot bath and all the items in the chair. And then the last picture is the sterilizing unit that they're going to use and so forth. And then again, they'll be able to go back and forth with the full shop. So he's asking permission to be able to have this as part of his services.
Would there just be a note for the inspector that when they are inspected, that this area would also be included?
Yes, that's a great point, and that's absolutely how we'll do it. I'm sure they'll be pretty bummed at having to enter Dollywood just inspect and leave. They may stick around for a little bit.
They're asking for pedicure only, not nails, just pedicures.
I think that's how they're seeing that the clientele will, what they'll want, something quick, and you're in the pool and they realized you want this. Like I said, part of what he was asking for, we told him without any problem, and Betty's been talking to him for a long time. They're going to be ready in about a month, I think, to open. Is the painting for the kids. They wanted to do clown faces, things on, that kind of thing, and be mobile with that, and that we'd have no problem with because we don't regulate that.
They put wheels on it, it could be a mobile pedicure spot.
It could park at some section of Dollar.
They got to put GPS though, right?
GPS.
I make a motion to grant that request.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Makes me want to go.
The letter that we will send them will allow them to just work in this barn by the pool, and that's it. Just if they've got anything else in time that develops, they'll have to come before us.
This may be part of your motion, but They're gonna have their license posted there?
The shop is going to have the license posted. What we will recommend is that they get a duplicate and have the duplicate out in the, and I'll add that, in the barn.
This is pedicures only, correct?
That is how they're wanting to, yes, have that business. And, you know, and that could be fantastic, and that's all they do, or they may find that they've got a huge request for manicures, and they come before.
I get polish changes a lot at a pool, I bet you.
I bet you that's what it is.
I'm sure nobody has walked
Something
through
fun.
that park with tired feet, so.
I have one question. On the bins on page 70, are they supposed to be labeled soil towels, or that's what it looks like it is?
That's what it looks like. The trash can would be fine, but they'll probably need to label them before the inspection, yes. I'll put a note. Next, we have a request from Ms. Karen Percy. Ms. Percy? It is nice to meet you.
Oh, it's
Very
nice to
nice to
meet you
meet
too, Roxanne.
If they've got questions.
Okay,
Let me get you all.
okay.
Have, starting on your iPads on page 72, Ms. Percy is here to answer any questions you have. This is a uniquely designed utility belt that she has. She would like the board to take a look at it. I was able to look at the video, but I knew that the setup for video for that in particular wouldn't work, and you would have her before you, so you could take a look at what she is wanting to use, and with the board's blessing, have schools and shops carry this. There's always been concerns and mixed feelings about these utility belts, and I know hers is specifically designed by her for the professionals in the industry, kind of to make their service of their clients go better. And so I will let her answer any questions that you have, and then we can go from there and see what we need to do.
So when I talk, do I have to,
Yeah, it's red right now.
It's
so
red,
If your
okay.
voice is loud like mine, it'll always be on.
okay. Well, Roxana, thank you. By the way, I apologize because I feel like I've been overzealous. I've sent her a ton of emails and calls and all this, but I started this a little over 3 years ago. And before I started it, I went ahead and read all the rules and all the regulations just to make sure. And this is actually something that I had made in the 90s in Texas from a saddle maker guy that I just used by myself. It's for finishing, doing blowouts, etc. We didn't even have flat irons back then, you know. So fast forward to now, there are blowout companies popping up everywhere, mobile, like what y'all were talking about earlier everywhere. If you go on set or if you do weddings or whatever, this particular belt, it actually helps you to keep everything sanitized because, or not sanitized, but you know, it's more sanitary because I've got like a looping system on here, and I don't know if there are pictures or if but it shows all the different ways to utilize the belt. But it just basically the combs and the brushes actually sit outside on a looping system that I've got. So it's just basically to kind of keep everything like your station right at your waist. Irons, your curling irons, things like that, so you can keep that in there as well. So if you're wearing an apron, you can't put a comb in your apron pocket. That was like the only thing that I could find. So anyway, I had an inspector come in to my salon, and I was all excited, and I told him about. So anyway, spoke with Roxana. She said that should be no problem, and I contacted the inspector again.
No, not necessarily. I said that. The board's going to have to review it, and we're going to think it through.
Which is why I'm here. Yes. Yes. So anyway, Don had done some research, the inspector, and he called me back and said, "Sorry, I made a mistake. I was just given the wrong information." But I've got a video. It's like literally like just a minute if y'all want to see it, or if you want to actually see photos, or if you want.
Why don't you model it for us up here?
I've seen the video. It's very cool. I have.
I know.
So I'm gonna pass one around and we'll make sure, and then she'll be here.
Actually, one of my biggest markets is going to be to cosmetology schools, because what I want to do, I want to help people get jobs, right? So the cosmetology educators, they have a job to teach, to train up to a certain point of, they want to make sure their students pass their test. And the school that I had gone to back in Texas a million years ago, they would bring in specialists to come in. They would bring in cutting specialists and color specialists and whatever. So I have a really cool 3-step technique that I want to teach. It works off the belt. I want to train these people, these students, so that when they get out of school, they can get a job. You know, there's blowout companies everywhere, and almost everyone that works at a blowout company, they also work at a salon. So they're able to pull clients. It's a great step into making money. It's a great step into, you know, furthering their career and getting better. But I can show it to you if you want. I brought a flat iron too. You typically, and I forgot to bring my round brush. I really, really wanted to show you my looping system. This one has less pockets on it. So you can use the looping system to actually run the blow dry. That's where you put your round brushes. I always work with it time, so I'm able to just, you know, just do. Special fabric in here that keeps
I thought it was cool.
okay. So basically, I just wanted to make sure that that I could actually sell this to cosmetology schools and whatnot, because that's one of my biggest markets. And I may have been overzealous. I mean, I pulled my marketing plan from my business plan. If y'all want to see that, you know, it just has statistics and whatnot. But anyway, I just needed basically not for you to promote it for me, but just a stamp of approval to say, yes, the board says it's okay.
I mean, you'd like to put in your advertisement that it's board approved, right?
Yes, yes. And then, because this is the deal, when I've actually partnered with a school or two. One's out in Hendersonville. That was kind of their little bitty red flag. That, well, it was such a gray area, and so I really, really needed something in writing to say, yes, it's actually okay for me to sell this to you, for you to use it. And I have a stepdaughter going to cosmetology school out in Cool Springs, and she's worn it, and they've told her, I don't think that's approved. You need to take that off, you know. So if there's any red flags, I can't sell it, right?
Right.
So,
offhand, what does this retail for?
well, I have different systems, and I have a website you're more than welcome to look at. I have the Mac Daddy has.
Don't we all?
It has. It has.
I don't.
Y'all want one? You want a Mac Daddy?
Your wife does.
It has a clip pocket. It has a wet tool pocket, which you put your hairspray or whatever in that. So it's got the thermal pocket, and it has a scissor pocket, and the belt, and the Kanga belt. That retails for $99. And then we have a blowout system it retails for $80. And then you can do a la carte. You can like piece it together however you want.
Not to turn this into Shark Tank, but you're looking for any investors?
I will be soon, yes.
Okay.
I literally just launched this last week, so it's
Great.
a big
It's a
deal.
great idea.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So what is it that we're trying to do here as a board?
I think in the past, there have been various reasons, and Mr. Gilliham's probably going to be able to give us a lot more history than I will, on concerns with using the belts, and shops and schools alike saying that they are not allowed. So there's nothing specific in the rules or laws that says that it is prohibited, which is why I said I think you really need to, it's a different time, you need to come and show it, you need to explain it, we need to hear what the concerns are about it, and then decide specifically, since she's actually made, come up with the concept as far as the moving around, and a lot of it is unique to her before she starts producing it. It's not something she just bought off Amazon. The board would need to really consider, should the field inspectors have any reason to be concerned? Is this something we want to open up?
There's probably two things here. First of all, she's asking the board for an endorsement. I don't
No,
think it
she's
was.
not.
No,
She's not?
She made it
Just
clear
wants
she's
to make
not.
sure that we won't open complaints
Right.
or tell the schools, no, you can't use them, correct?
I won't turn down an endorsement, though.
The reason that these things have generally been denied in the past is because there is a requirement in the rules that says that all implements must be stored in an enclosed sanitary container. Okay? Enclosed kind of being one of those keys. Whenever an inspector walks into a shop and they see a pair of clippers sitting on a counter, that's a violation. Whenever you lay your shears down on a counter, your combs down, brushes down on a counter, that's a violation. You should have an enclosed device for that. Now, folks, we live in a real world, and I'm sure that goes on every day, and people are trying their best to do well and be sanitary, but it is a technicality in the rules. So it hasn't been very long at all when I've heard an inspector tell a shop owner, no, that's not permitted. Okay, I just happened to be there when he came in for an inspection. They're known to collect hair, and don't get me wrong, I'm not in favor of them. I'm not against them. I think they're wonderful. Myself, I would have loved to have been using one for 20 years, but the rules being what they were, that's why we haven't been. That doesn't mean that we can't view it differently going forward.
Ron, I hear you, and I think we're at a point in time in the industry where we kind of need to look at maybe changing it, because one of my salons is a 57-chair salon. We had 57 hairdressers with 2 belts, so it was orderly and it was neat and they were kept clean, and we were told to put them up. And now I got to run around the salon like a chicken without a head because stuff's left out. Right. So it was better off before than it is now, and providing they are kept sanitary, just like because it really is enclosed for the most part.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think that's really debatable in itself. But I think what it does also, it allows the standard of the industry to be raised, because nobody's going to go out and spend $100 if they don't care enough about being professional and doing the right thing. So I think it kind of self-polices itself, just based on the consumer.
I'm sorry, Frank.
I was just going to say I'm in favor of it, based on the fact that it does come from a professional standard, and I think just because it's always been that way, don't mean it needs to stay that way.
I mean, I look at the belt as being enclosed. Everything is in a compartment, and especially with her hairdryer, if she has the hairdryer hooked on her, it's plugged into something, so she's actually working. She can't go too far. How long is that cord?
If you do, you're going to lose your tools.
It's my own personal belief in this, that if the board were to allow these type devices to be used, that you would see much less of the implements being left on counters.
I totally
It would
agree.
actually take us to a whole nother level, I believe.
So Laura, does that take us to a rulemaking process?
I haven't been on this board maybe long when these limitations remain, but when I read the rules and it says stored, I guess I wasn't assuming during a service they were stored. I'm thinking
They're
at the
not.
end of the day you can't just leave
They're
it on
really
the
not. I
counter.
mean,
I'm
most
thinking
salons
at the end
don't.
of the day they need to be
And
Put away.
if a
stored.
student, Laura, if a student is going to go take their state board practicals, the standard there is you will remove your tool from your enclosed storage pouch. You will proceed to do the haircut with your shears and comb. If you have to lay those things down, they are soiled and they cannot be reused. or they have to go through the resanitation process. So if you lay them down, the student is penalized if they don't immediately place them in an enclosed container.
Well, in this belt, they're not being laid down.
I'm telling you what the interpretation has been in the past for that. I don't think that we would have any difficulties if we reinterpreted that, could we?
Just
Oh,
saw
and-
it
and
differently,
I-
viewed it differently.
And let me tell you, they do it for the test, they walk out of the room and they never do it again.
Thank you.
I mean, that's the reality of it.
That's what they're required at the test, but
I mean, and with
I think
this,
it's a good thing.
and with this belt, she's not laying anything down. Everything is on her.
Correct. Now, and that's the reason, as we discussed it, I said this is a different time, and the reality is, exactly as Mr. Gambusa stated, it may actually keep things cleaner to some extent and on you and taken care of even better if they decide to do that. And obviously, then it's an education thing. We will be educating the schools that it's allowed, that this is, it's defining enclosed. It never said in a closed drawer.
Right,
But,
never.
you know, if you go back to the fumigant being used, that was considered in every drawer and the reason things were put back in there. Now we can't use the fumigants and shouldn't. And so, yes, they're in the closed drawer. And that's not to say that some of the equipment wouldn't still be stored, but everything that you're using consistently that's handy.
And they should still be sanitized
Yeah, still
anyway
have to be
before they
Absolutely.
come in and out.
Yeah, I don't think that changes,
No,
and that's
not at
that's
all.
written already, so.
So with our enlightenment, we really don't have to make a motion or anything, do we?
I have that we will be motioning, mostly because I have a feeling that we're going to be hearing from the schools with concerns, and we want to say, it's not that we've changed the rule. It is that we've evaluated the word enclosed and realized that the pockets, and so if they've got another, so we're not saying they have to buy this one.
Right.
But they'll find others that are similar and protected from and are clean. When we inspect them, they've got to be clean. It can't, the inspector can't come and look in the pocket and it be filthy, because then
But
that would be.
just like a drawer has to be clean.
Just like the drawer.
I
That's
mean,
exactly the case. So the
Yeah.
enclosed would be treated as the board's looked at this, and anything similar to this that closes off the product is viewed to be,
So the belt could be inspected, is what you're saying?
yes, yes.
And it should be.
Absolutely should be.
Yeah.
When you've used it in the past, how do you clean it when it starts to,
You throw it in the washer.
seriously?
You throw it in the washer. Yep. It's a special fabric. It's very expensive, but yeah, it will last. The one that I have from the 90s is completely different from this one. It's not as modular as this one is, but I still have it. Same fabric. Throw it in the washer. It still looks the same. Like, it's just very well made.
We're still saying, though, no pockets and pants pockets and shirt pockets and jacket pockets, those kind of things, I
It
guess.
has to be on that belt.
May I?
Wearable
Yes, ma'am, you have a
storage.
question?
Well, may I just say one more thing about that?
Don't.
You were talking about how your brushes and whatnot can't be laid. That is another really cool thing about this, is because you're never laying back and forth. It's hanging there off of your little loop. It's just hanging there. So it's never even you can go from sanitation to putting here when you're done, back into sanitation. So it's
That would
never
be our
even laying
hope.
on a counter.
Do we need to make a motion?
Right.
Yes, we do.
I do want to make a point, though, that if schools are using these or students are purchasing them, that the test, to Ron's point, I would hate to see students show up to the test with their belt when the test maybe has not, I don't want to say caught up, that's not the right word, but
Progressed.
yes.
And it might never change to allow for the belt, simply because the purpose, as Mr. Gilhan stated, is that you're coming with equipment that's actually sealed, labeled, and for the proctor, it's easy for them to see, are they understanding the sanitation principle?
Yes.
And so we'll probably never change that, but yeah, the schools will
So-
have to address that.
So if the verbiage says able to be used by a licensed cosmetologist, because someone taking the test isn't licensed yet, right?
Right, right.
So that would kind of take care of itself there.
The students could use them, they just need to know.
Yeah,
that-
right, but not for the test.
Right.
Okay, so they can use them in the schools, but they can't use them for the test?
Exactly.
Is that right? Okay.
That would require change, wouldn't it, Ron?
That would require a change
Yeah,
with
you don't
PSI, the
wanna
testing
do that.
company. Yeah, that would be an education thing for the schools. We'd have to make sure the schools were well informed.
And I think it would be harder for the proctors. They can go very quickly seeing what you're picking up, putting down, and that you're purposely realizing sanitation would be involved at this point. So,
So to Ron's point, as opposed to an endorsement, we're not denying and we're allowing.
right.
right?
I think what we would be doing, if the board decides, is approving her request that the enclosed requirement that's in the statute is met by a belt similar to this, that has pouches that conceal it. Something in those terms. And that would be our language. It's not that she probably would get a letter because she's officially coming before the board, but that letter would simply define that this is enclosed. If schools want to use this or something similar, it would have to meet kind of that enclosed wording still.
I ask council her recommendation or opinion? To
Whether or not you can approve this?
no, just your opinion on hearing this from a verbiage or legal standpoint.
I think that if we've always interpreted enclosed to mean a certain thing, then we definitely need to have on the record how we're interpreting that now. I don't see a problem with this. I'm assuming that at the end of the day, people are still and putting them in a drawer or something. If while they're providing a service, they have tools and pockets, I don't have a problem. I don't see how that conflicts with the law. And yeah, it doesn't require a change from the test because testing conditions can include all kinds of things. It's not really uncommon in any industry for a student to have to walk in with like a clear enclosed bag with anything that they're going to have with them in the testing room. So as long as you're making a motion that that's how you're interpreting this belt will be used and it's on the record, I think that's fine.
I'll make that motion for belts, period, not necessarily just this one, but any belt that will be used meets that criteria.
By
Well,
law,
sometimes
so
first
that would
to
be
market
best.
takes care of itself, though.
Can we make a suggestion to maybe specify in the instructions, the packet that comes with the belt, to say that it's important that you do remember to sanitize your implements before? I don't know if that's necessary or not.
I don't know that we have any control over the belts that they will be buying. They'll say whatever they say, and they probably say, be careful for sharp objects, things along those lines even. But I don't know that the belts would say anything about sanitation.
You
Our
can't
rules will trump it.
Yeah, you
Okay,
can't
gotcha.
require that anybody puts anything on a label, but you as a board can make a recommendation that anyone selling a belt refers
That's what I was trying to say.
consumers back to the COSMO rules. You can make
Yeah.
that recommendation. It's not a bad idea.
That's what
But
I
you
was
can't
trying to
require
say,
it.
but I didn't know how to say it.
Her job.
So-
She's really good at that.
We
We have a
we had a
motion.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Wait a
say-
minute. Well, it seems like to me that your audience would be more the licensed cosmetologists that are working, because students, they're trying to get their license and they're trying to practice what's right for the test. So I can see people that are already licensed wanting to have something that's, user-friendly to use more so than schools. I don't know. And I don't know if every school owner will say, won't it be at the discretion of the school owner as to whether or not they will allow it?
Yes, but there's been just this gray area. So it raised a red flag, and I want to bring in some education on, because when they leave school, yes, they know how to pass the test, but it kind of gives them it almost helps them to have more of a foot out the door of feeling confident in how to do finish work. Finish work is the most important thing to know. You may not know all your color grade, you may not do the best haircut yet, but my gosh, if your blowout, if your finish work is fantastic, that client will come back. I've got a 3-step technique. I want to teach that. I'll have my company will have people that will teach that and go into schools. So that's why I wanted to make sure it was okay to do this in schools, because I really want to train them up so they can get out there and get some jobs.
That sounds more of continuing education.
But
Because
I
the
have
school-
it with the belt though.
Yeah,
It
still,
goes with,
That's a
yes.
point of difference
Yes.
of continued education.
yeah.
I mean, somebody goes in with a broken Coke bottle and does a haircut, the point of difference is they're cool enough to do a haircut with a broken Coke bottle, right? So that's all that really is. What you're really needing is not so much for it to be endorsed, as you're needing the fact that it's not turned down.
Exactly. Because if there's any red flag at all, a cosmetology school will say, no. And that's one of my biggest markets. So I need, something in writing saying we're cool with that.
So we did have a motion and we had a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and let me say thank you. I've waited my entire career for somebody to come in front of the board and ask that question.
Hey, well, if I could do cartwheels right now, I would do them. But I want to embarrass myself. Thank you so much. Thank you, Roxanne.
It was a pleasure to meet you
Thank you
again.
so
Okay, you're
much.
welcome.
Thank you.
I'll get you the letter, and she'll approve my language
Okay.
before I get it out.
Thank you so much.
I get 50 of these in my warehouse. I had to put away.
Thank you. Okay. And I will, just for the board to know, I will have Laura kind of look at that sentence we're going to add in there. I'm thinking it's approve the request that an enclosed requirement is met by the belt with a pouch that maintains equipment clean, something along those lines, and Laura will look at it.
You let the inspectors know? Is that what you said?
We will. They're here July 12th. They're here for training on various things, discussing the mobile salon, and then we will cover this because, as you've said, most of them are going to immediately say, no, this isn't allowed, and so we want to make sure that they know. Yes. Okay, you have, next on your iPads, we have a presentation from Ms. Catherine Fleural. Ms. Fleural? Okay.
Which I've got a copy if needed
Okay,
for
no, this is good.
whomever.
As you're speaking, if you'll make sure that this light is on. Let me get them situated with your.
Ladies, as you're leaving in the back, I'd like to take this opportunity before you go to say this. Remember what happens at the board down here. If you come and ask questions, sometimes you can change an entire industry. So carry that with you as you leave.
Okay, you have before you a two-page letter from Ms. Fleural. I'll let her answer your questions. Basically, she has education as a surgical technologist to serve toward, that she would like permission to serve those hours toward an aesthetics license. The board does not have the breakdown of these hours, or didn't, so that's what I was just handed right now, and I'll take a look at it as she answers your questions. So I do have a breakdown of what those hours consisted of. Basically, she's explaining in her letter that she has been doing extreme lashes and has a special certification for them. And she's been doing these for 12 years before she realized that we license and regulate that particular field. And so she's asking for consideration of her education in the surgical technologist so that she can possibly take the exam, if the board goes down that direction, to be able to get her hours as an esthetician. And of course, her sole desire, at least right now, is the eyelash area. The exam, if it's aesthetics that the board approves, would cover a lot more than that. But I'll let you look at her letter and then ask her any questions that you would like.
I mean, how many hours? Esthetician school? 900?
150.
750. Thank you.
And if I could interrupt and let Laura kind of, this is, no?
I'm not ready.
Oh, okay. If Laura has any concerns, then she'll ask us, or,
Sorry.
that's, you're good.
Where did you receive your certificate of surgical technology from?
Chattanooga State.
All your work in the lash business was in Tennessee?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you figured out that you weren't supposed to be doing that, you just want to get legal?
Sir, I closed my doors and had many sad ladies, so I would like to see about getting legal, if would support that if y'all feel.
Laura, do we have the legal ability to grant such a request from this type of school?
I don't think the board has the authority to waive educational requirements because they're in the statute. I'm trying to look at her fall under an exception. I don't know though.
Whole desire is to do lash extensions alone.
Can you tell us about your shop setting? What are the circumstances there? Is it a medical type facility or?
Yes, when I first started out doing lashes, when I went in 2009 and received my initial training, I worked out of, my mother owned a tanning salon / day spa in Ottawa, Tennessee. Well, we had an esthetician that worked out of the back there doing facials and all aesthetics. Well, somehow she didn't want to do lash extensions. I said, hey, I'll go do it, since I was okay with extreme lash with my background in surgery. So I come back, started working out of there. Well, my mother closed the store, and from there I just started renting out of different salons in Chattanooga. And so I just pretty much did booth rent up until I realized, when I was looking through the laws, that, okay, this just might fall under as a no-no.
Have you ever been cited or had a complaint?
No, sir. I've never had. I've been doing it 6 years. I started out more on the medical side. I was doing chemo patients and ladies with like hair loss issues or just thyroid problems.
You were doing that in the shop?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Not in a hospital or a clinic?
No.
Okay. I'm looking for straws here.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a real gray area.
I know there is a new law in Texas, but to get, because like in my letter that states, like right now I kind of find myself where like manicurists were when they first started. It would be ideal to have a separate licensing for lash extensions, because there is a lot of awful things out there that people are doing every day that are unlicensed. But
if we require a license for that, then there needs to be a school that offers that.
or some form of training,
Or
yes,
training,
more
yeah.
than what you get in the cosmetology program
Right.
in Tennessee.
I mean, I'm just waiting to see what we can do. I don't know what we can do about this.
Okay, so to apply eyelashes right now, it falls under the esthetician, right?
Cosmetologists can do it, estheticians can do it, and actually master barbers can do it because it
Yeah.
addresses
Yes, we
hair.
can.
Okay, and so you are
Videos,
not
right.
licensed in any of those areas
Correct.
as of right now.
Correct.
And you are you're asking us to waive the educational piece for you to do that?
Yes, ma'am. To accept my surgery background or my medical schooling, so to speak. As
Okay.
You know the total number of hours under your surgical? I tried to.
1334.
We got the transcript today for the first time, and I've not shared any of this with Laura just because there's so much for our board meeting for her to really consider. When we discussed it, I said, we'll present it, but it's very likely that the board may not even have the authority to do it. So that's where we're at, and I apologize that I didn't have a chance to share it all with Laura either. So this is the first time we're looking at the transcript, but the hours obviously aren't the same.
Have we approved any esthetician schools, the standalone module in her area yet?
There is no standalone even application for an esthetician school.
A barber technician license would allow you, I believe, I think it covers shampoos, hair color application, the actual rodding of a perm, and it does cover facials. It covers
You're
facials.
correct.
That is about a 320, 340 hour course.
And the issue with that, it's something for you to consider about, obviously, is that it is a little bit more than just the eyelashes, but
Yes.
it's definitely the one with the least hours if we can't accept any of these toward it.
Apprentice program and an esthetician program would be a good path as well, because you could work half of it.
So you signed your letter as surgical technologist and then certified extreme lash stylist.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
I've had training 2 separate courses through Extreme Lash as well.
okay, extreme lash, and so that's how you got that certification?
Yes, ma'am.
What is a surgical technologist like?
I pass instruments in surgery, and I sew you up when the doctor's done. He goes and does the chart, and I take care of the rest. And the last 4 years that I worked in the operating room, my specialty was micro-ophthalmology. So I'm very big on eyes, or that was kind of my passion, and that's kind of what geared me towards finding something along those lines.
Or do we have the authority?
Let me say something real quick. She currently had 1,334 hours. If we turn the, right, that's what,
In a completely different field.
no,
than
I
ours,
understand.
but yes,
I
yes.
understand. So what I'm saying is if we turn around today and said you would still need to meet the requirements for Tennessee, we're looking at a 170-hour difference, if that was even possible. I'm just hypothetical, right?
For cosmetology, but she can go with aesthetics to
No,
do
okay, but what
eyelashes.
I'm saying is here, okay, for the whole thing, and that's how many hours?
750, so she has more than enough for aesthetics.
Well, where I was going with this though was if we were requiring for 1,500, if we were considering those 1,334 to be valid for a 1,500-hour license, it's a 170-hour difference. Ron's saying that it falls under 300. With a barber's license, would be able to do it with 300
Barber
hours.
technician.
Barber
Right,
technician.
barber technician, which is really just a 110-hour difference.
But if the hours are valid, then we should just be able to take her to test for an esthetician.
Anything
if
within
that's
barber,
allowed.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
cosmetology involves so much
That's-
hair, I don't
that's-
think that's her passion. Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to get it the least path of resistance, because, look, what she studied and did
Well, that's the reason
was
she
a lot
came
greater
before
than
you,
what-
is because the education and the certificates. Now, we've had a lot of issues, I think at a couple of board meetings ago, we talked about the eyelashes, people doing them without a license. If you are selling the product, there's an exception under our rules that say if you're selling the product and working as, doing makeup because you're selling Estee Lauder or Clinique, if you're selling the lashes and you're applying them because you're selling the lashes, you don't have to have one of our licenses. And so it's been kind of a bumpy ground. Every now and then we see these places open, and if that's what they're about, is selling the product, and they're not charging to apply, they don't have our license. She's very clearly coming before us because she's about applying and working on the eyelashes.
So if, to do it legally, she would need an esthetician license, and if.
Or
Or
a
a
barber
barber
technician, as I
Oh,
think
Or a
you're
Cosmo.
A
right.
lot
Any of the
that's
three.
different.
Yeah, now
Yeah,
that's a lot
but
more.
Cosmo's
but
like
see,
overkill.
No, I know, but I'm
Yeah.
saying that's what you
At a
need.
minimum, though.
We
So
have- we
we
have
could
made-
allow her to, if we voted to allow her to take this would be waiving the hours, but to take the esthetician test in Tennessee, then if she can pass the test, she would, I'm just saying, I'm just throwing this out, I don't know.
We've
And I
made
do
decisions in the past on medical technician people that have wanted to do pedicures, and we did not allow that. We've made decisions in the past on, RNs that have quite a bit more training than a medical surgical tech, and nurse practitioners. We've actually denied them to provide services that we clearly regulate. So to be, we just, have kind of wanted to be consistent in this. So, it
And I
would
do
be
have
very
my
hard.
transcript from Chattanooga State showing like my microbiology and anatomy physiology. A lot of the classes that I took for surgical tech are what is in the cosmetology and aesthetics program, just probably a little more in depth. Same thing with extreme lash. I've got my transcript here showing what I was trained in very, very thoroughly, and it's way more in depth than what is offered in the state curriculum.
Chattanooga State have a cosmetology program?
Yes.
They will be offering the apprenticeship. I mean,
Maybe if they, through the education, Board of Regents or somebody, they could take those valuable hours in biology and sanitation and move them into the course. Maybe that's a way that you could start. But I think you'd have to do it at a level that somebody recognizes it as valid hours. I don't think we have that authority.
But she could go to Chattanooga State and see if any of those hours transferred from what she already took to the esthetician.
Well, ask them. Maybe,
program?
I don't know if the Board of Regents allow that, but, it's another board.
well, and Chattanooga State that carries our program is through us. They've gotten licensed through us.
Through us.
Oh,
Okay,
so
so
that's a unique idea. I think that's
Yeah.
worth pursuing.
Well, guys, I got to say this. I know it's a slippery slope, but it's almost a sense of being overqualified with intelligence, and here we are holding them back. And I don't know whether we can or not, but to me, it's almost going in the wrong direction as a profession when we're passing people and allowing people that just skate by with a tenth of the information and background and critical thinking and cleanliness and the necessary practices it takes to be a professional. And I think we really got to try to consider if this can work as opposed to it just being a black and white slam dunk.
I think the way we find out is we allow her to take the esthetician test, and then if she passes it, she knows what she's doing.
I agree with Nina.
I got no problem with that. I mean, I just think, look, his to me, based on that kind of background, and it all checked out and verified, I'd like to see more of that in our industry, not less.
You're waiving any sort of educational requirement and allowing someone to potentially fit in.
Right?
I don't know. It's like apples and oranges. I mean, she's got this, special. She's got this degree, but it's different from what she's wanting to be licensed in. It's like a doctor would be very certified, but could he come in a classroom and teach without an education degree? It's.
Well, obviously, we got to stay legal. I mean,
I know
that's not even a.
Yeah, that scares me. I don't want to do anything that's. And Laura's saying that we would actually be waiving all the hours.
She's saying she might have a caveat here as well. No?
That's really specific, isn't it, Laura?
I'm saying I don't think the board has the authority, or they should not be. I think that is the slippery slope.
What if some of the Chattanooga State said some of the hours did transfer? Then could she finish the remaining hours in the esthetician program? I take that as a no, that face.
That would be up to Chattanooga State, and I'm sure Chattanooga State would call.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, well, we're trying. I don't know.
Which is why
I have a,
when you brought up that she was signing her letter as a surgical assistant, which is why I went to this exception. I mean, is applying lash-ins for somebody who always worked in surgery on eyes, is that solely in their professional capacity? That's an interpretation. Sitting here without setting kind of a dangerous precedent to just waive education.
Right.
Then doesn't that go
I
back
have
to
a
Amy?
esthetician that is 6 years doing extreme lash, that you might even know her. But, I mean, she went to aesthetic school so she could do that. Because there was no exception.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
My thoughts is, it's wonderful that you got all this education. It really is, and it's wonderful where you want to go with it. But something that I mentioned earlier, the rules are kind of the rules, and you can't detour because it opens up such a mess of someone that's not so genuine as yourself. So it's protocols, it's a process, and it's I see where Nina is coming from. Take the test if you pass, but then we're excluding all educational hours, and then somebody's gonna see a loophole. So it just kind of
We can't do that, though, she says. We can't
we're not
exclude.
authorized. Okay,
Right.
so we can't do that at all. Okay, so it's kind of like just figure something out where she can take the minimum hours and get licensed. And the barber technician is kind of seem like where it's leading.
At this point, I think you see we're trying to help you. We want to
Absolutely,
help you.
yes, and I
but
certainly appreciate
our
it.
hands are kind of tied here. At this point, unless the board has another recommendation, I think I would say to you, you're probably going to need to either consider doing the barber technician program, which is 340 hours, or an esthetician program. Those are your two least hours required.
And keep in mind the apprenticeship program.
And those,
Yeah, what is because Tennessee does not have a straight up apprenticeship program, correct? Just Georgia?
We have apprentice programs.
Yes.
Not under, so under the barbering, you would not be able to start
But under
anytime
the
soon.
esthetician, you would.
It would have to be aesthetics would be your least hours that mostly apply. Hopefully, within 9 months or so to a year, we'll have the rules for the barber apprenticeship.
You know better than me.
Chattanooga College, and I spoke about apprenticeship, so it may be worth just addressing their cosmetology program and aesthetics and see if they could do that. But under barbering, you'd have to wait a little bit longer until that started. And the way the apprentice is half of the hours would be in the school and half under an experienced person in a shop.
The easiest path would be Ron's path.
Oh, yeah.
the easiest path is to go straight to a barber school, get 340 hours. That's going to take you no time.
What's that mean, Ron? No time?
40 hours a week. So about, what's, 8 weeks, 10
Okay.
weeks?
What was your question about Georgia? I missed that piece.
How they have an apprenticeship program, or I was just saying that Tennessee does not have it like Georgia has.
It's not identical, but if you decided to go to Georgia and their hours, I mean, I just don't know that the hours would be comparable. But it may be something you want to look at because they do have apprenticeship right now. Yes.
Until the law changes anyhow, to where there
And
is
the law
separate
has
licensing
changed.
for lash people.
The law has changed, the rules aren't there to be able to
Okay.
do apprenticeship. But none of our licenses are just for lashes,
Right.
so.
There's some additional things in there.
Yeah.
It's not very difficult. Okay.
Oh, we looked at all the angles.
I'm
and-
afraid that's the best we can do.
Yeah, we can't break the law or go against any of our laws or
Well, I
rules, so-
appreciate it.
I think we still do need a motion, given that we are denying actually the request, or.
Make a motion to deny.
Second.
Motion and a second. To deny, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Roxana, just to clarify, if you're selling the lashes, you can do that and apply them without a license.
If you work for the lash company, not if you just get a wholesale.
You're selling the product. In other words, your income is based on selling those lashes for extreme
From the
lash.
company or just your source of income?
Yeah, that's what I was getting
No,
ready
the
to say. like-
company's paying you to sell, just like
So you're a
Estee Lauder.
representative
You're a rep
slash
of the
employee of the
company.
company that sells them?
Just like your makeup. It falls under the retail makeup individuals that apply your
Hey, so
makeup,
I
foundation.
buy an opening order, a boatload, and I put it in this room. And I hire Bobby because he's the best lash guy in Memphis. And I'm
Bet
paying,
you are,
and
Bobby.
I'm paying him to sell that product. I don't manufacture it.
Right.
He can do that
Bobby can't charge to put the eyelashes on.
Right, but he
at
can
all.
do it
But he
under-
can sell it and do that, yeah.
in a
Yes.
in a cosmetology license environment.
There'd be no reason it wouldn't
So
be
it's
in our
not-
shop.
it's not
It
a
can be in our
manufacturer
shop or
representative.
someplace separate.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
I think that connection makes sense, but I think that would be impossible to regulate, right? Who's employed by who?
I think to me that's a real mixed message of how to get around not having a license.
And the same thing happened, we actually saw it with the hair straighteners that were sold in the kiosks in the mall. They start doing hair. Before you know it, they're doing someone's hair, and they're not cosmetologists, but they are selling the straightener. They're luring you in to sell the straightener, the blow dryer, the curling, whatever, and they're showing you on sections of your hair. They don't charge to do your hair. Although you may leave with a great hairdo, they're charging you to hopefully buy that product. So we don't regulate those folks either. The eyelashes fall very similar to that, but it's bumpy grounds.
Does it work that way with any tool or product?
Basically, if it's about selling the product, be it foundation, the eyelashes, the straightener, then you don't need the license.
But the
'cause it's
hairspray.
spray away and don't need a license, I guess, if that's all you're doing. Your shampoo representatives.
Give someone a haircut for
Right.
free
I
for a
didn't say haircut.
$50
Yeah.
bottle of
Right.
hairspray.
Right.
But if you're trying to sell
But
hairspray,
you can straighten their hair with an iron and spray it, and
You're selling
and
the-
as
you're
long as you
selling-
didn't charge them, you could sell them hairspray and irons.
Right, yes. Yeah. you know, your people, your individuals that sell the shampoo and conditioner, they may end up playing and showing the hair and doing things to the hair, but they're selling you the product.
At least
Falls
they're
under the exception
intentional
of the law that you're allowed to
service.
demonstrate a product that you're trying to sell.
I could see it in a kiosk because it's not a licensed environment. I think it becomes gray when we're allowing that to go on under the roof of a license.
But also, like this young lady, if she went into a physician's office, like say an ophthalmologist, which is their principal practice, and her doctor's license came up, she could work under that doctor's license too. There's a lot of options.
No, I wasn't even comparing any of what I'm saying. I'm just, I mean, here I got a makeup artist that I sent to makeup school to get a license so he could do makeup in my salon. I probably didn't have to. I probably could have gave him that money as a salary and said, sell makeup.
And were you going to be a representative of the makeup product? I mean, that is a way around the rule, yeah.
Well, if his sole responsibility would have been to sell that, apply it all day and sell it, then it would have fell under that. But I wouldn't have felt right about the fact of having somebody non-licensed in my establishment.
Okay.
Thanks.
No, you're welcome. Next, we are on to Mr. Danielle Heaston. Mr. Heaston? Mr. Heaston is in the military. He was going to try his hardest to make it, but he is actually on duty, and so I knew that most likely he wouldn't be able to attend. His application starts on page 79. This is a master barber, and he is wanting your approval to take the instructor exam. He was granted reciprocity under the Military Occupational Skill, the MOS, in July of 2015. The letter regarding his Tennessee Air National Guard status states that he performed barber services for 2 years. That would mean that in June 2016, he would have the 3 continuous years of experience as a master barber. He's requesting permission to take the instructor exam because he's got a new job opportunity. The letter that you've got on page 80 describes some of his experience teaching. The reason he's appearing before you to review this application is that the recent law changes in Public Chapter 991, the one I was confusing earlier, change the barber 3-year experience to grant hours. And so the way that law changes, it gives a up until now what we're doing and then effective July 1st. And I just wanted the board to make sure to review this because under the military situation, he can be granted with your permission the ability to test and use those 3 years of experience in lieu of the hours. And so that is what you're considering today is his experience to be able to count so he can take the instructor exam.
He'll be at the 3-year level anyway in June.
Based on the letter on page 82, he started doing under the, is it Navy? National Guard. He was the barber there starting in June for 2 years. And then he's been licensed in Tennessee for 1. So that gives him the 3 years. The new public chapter is going to make barber and cosmetology identical to where there'll be 300 hours and you need to be licensed for 3 consecutive years.
Did he go to barber school?
No, the way the military works is they get that military occupational skill while in the military, and that's how they get the education.
Qualified to test.
And it qualifies them, yes. And in the barber code, there's a specific approval for this. Yes. But none of it addresses that he learned to teach. And so we couldn't really necessarily count it, but he meets those 3 years. That with this public chapter really ends at the end of this month to where they would need hours. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like he wants to apply his 300 hours twice. Or his time in the, not 300 hours, 3 years. He wants to use that for the barber license itself.
That he got,
and
now
then
for the
to
instructor.
reapply it again for an instructor's program.
So he does not have a barber's license right now?
Does. He has a master barber license in Tennessee and has for a year. He never obtained a master barber instructor license because based on the letter, there was no instructor piece on here. he has written down on his letter here his experience. He believes qualifies him as an instructor for the past several years. My MOS, which is that military occupation that he's been doing, has been to instruct others to ensure safety techniques and proper usage and handling of materials, utensils to accomplish a set forth mission from the United States Air Force, et cetera. So what he has told me and put in the letter is that he does have instructing experience. And I don't know that our master barbers that do the 3 years and then come in to test as instructors have any instructor experience other than the 3 years.
That's going away.
Yes.
And that's why.
I think part of it is to make them identical, the cosmetology and the barber, yeah.
Yeah, the way it is currently, you could either go to school for your 450 hours, or you could have 3 years of service and then simply take the test without any education. That's still going to be in effect until the public chapter goes into change.
The public chapter is written in a way that it's got a grandfathering clause for the barbers. It actually addresses after June 30th of 2016 and before next July. So it gives a year of leeway. So we would be in that middle section with him.
People who are caught in there.
Caught in there, correct. Correct.
And he's only missing a period of time from the 3 years. Am I understanding that
Barely.
correctly?
It's actually June. So
It's
he's
June, so-
exactly at the 3 years.
What's your recommendation to the board, Ross?
I think we approve him to test if we want to be consistent with, had he come in just like any other master barber or any other reciprocal master barber, then we would have automatically approved him. But with the military, it's not really 1,500 hours ever obtained, if you will. And honestly, I never had an opportunity to do the statistics, but it would be interesting to see if the barbers with 3 years' experience put through to test as instructors, what the percentage of passing was, because I think it was fairly low.
There's
It's a
probably
hard
been very
test.
few instructors in the barber side to test in the last 3 years, but
Yes.
for the ones that have, I can tell you it's a fairly tough test.
It's a tough test.
Instructor test.
The instructor test.
It's a tough one? You said it's a tough test?
It's a tough test. You're going to, of course, take your theory test in advance. When you pass that, your practical, for your practical, you have to actually write a lesson plan, and you're going to do a lecture with a certain amount of time. You're going to deliver the lesson plan. You're going to give tests, and there's a whole procedure that goes into that. You're doing it not like in a room like this where you're actually talking to people. You're going to do it in a room alone with you and the proctor, and you're teaching as though you're teaching to a room full of people, and you're graded on procedures in that.
It's not easy, and he's obviously was in the military, 3 years there. I don't see why not give him a shot and let it take care of itself.
Is that a motion?
Yes, it is a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to let him take his test.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next three, I believe, are requests for the extension to the 6-year rule. This is Rule 0440-1-.10, which requires an applicant to obtain the original license within 6 months after passing the examination. The first one is Ms. Shamise Sally. She passed her cosmetology practical exam in October 2015. Under the cosmetology statute, the applicant would reapply and have to take both examinations after the 6 months. She missed that period by 6 weeks of the timeline. Her application was never sent to her by PSI. She's provided a letter, and that is on page 89, explaining that she made several attempts with PSI to send that application to her, and that's what made the time go by, and she missed it by 6 weeks. We would need to approve her her license at this point so that she wouldn't have to retest.
Which application did she not receive from PSI?
Final, that they're handed. On
Yeah.
occasion, if the computers are down, applicants are handed a letter that says you passed, but we can't hand you the application because the practical passing is really the application that they verify. When they're not handed that, we have no access to it. PSI has to follow up, and we've seen on occasions that has taken place.
Make a motion to approve her to test, or to be licensed. She's passed the test, correct?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next is the same example of Rule 0440-1-.10 with Miss Elia Brown. She passed her cosmetology practical exam in September of 2015. Under the statute, the applicant would have to take the examination again, having since it's been more than 6 months. Ms. Brown is 2 months past that timeline. Her application was missing the verification eligibility. That is on page 94. She did sign it on May the 5th, but we didn't have it in the board office for me to have presented it in May. The board had given me permission, the director permission, to approve for 1 additional month. So she just passed that timeline as well because we missed the May meeting.
Motion that we get her licensed.
Motion and a second to approve. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have the same situation with Miss Chelsea Nicole O'Brien. She passed her cosmetology practical exam in October of 2015. Under the statute, she'd need to take both exams again. Miss O'Brien is about 6 weeks past the required timeline. Her application was also missing the verification eligibility form. She signed it on April the 16th, but it did not get to the office until recently, and so she's requesting the same permission.
Well, is this common that this happens?
So this form has actually been a difficult thing for the office to get back timely. We are looking forward to the process. I mentioned, I think briefly in one of the committee meetings, we're going to have the ability for applicants to apply for a brand-new license online. We're hoping that this form, at least, is one of the things we'll gain from it because it forces you to answer if you're a U.S. citizen, qualifying alien, and submit it. They'll just forget that it's needed, and then more often than not, either ignore the letter. If we email them, the email goes to junk, and so
Does everybody have to fill it out, or is it randomly selected?
no, it's everyone. Everyone that needs a new license, whether it's for shop, school, or individual, it's a federal requirement, and we've had it mandated since December of 2014.
It sounds like something, the Tennessee Promise program, the kids are selected randomly to fill out the verification. It's just one more thing. But if they don't, then they don't get in it. I mean, there are deadlines to meet with that program, and if you don't meet them, too bad. If you don't show up for the meetings, you're done. So, I mean, I like black and white like that, but
Roxana, what is the timeline when someone goes online for their license that it comes out?
Right now, they can't. They cannot apply for a license online. Our hope is by the end of June, most will. This year, my goal is actually the cosmetology schools are going to renew online for the first time. So they're going to answer their questions, and then each barber school will be the same thing. As their renewal comes up, they'll be able to renew online and answer. So for new applicants, once we launch this, and we've been testing it for the last 2 to 3 months, they will go online and fill in their information. Social, where I live, where I went to school, anything that's required in paper, we're going to require online. They'll attach it, pay, and then we have to, of course, vet it, go through it. But it's going to save a couple of weeks at a minimum.
Or just a regular license renewal, not a new license.
Oh, renewal is a piece of cake. Please encourage everyone you know to renew online. Do not. I mean, that is, you go to core.tn.gov. And the first time may be a little bumpy to register yourself because it's more questions. It has a lot more security than the previous system. But when you renew online and it takes your payment and you are done, that license kicks out with the next run, which is usually a day and a half, depending on the time of day. 10 a.m. is the cutoff. So if you renewed last night, you're too late for the batch that's printing today. It would be the
Just
next.
had a staff member go, it was about 4 weeks. So I didn't know if it was what the deal was.
No, it either went to, they need to contact us. Now, the Memphis area, the mail can't get there in less than 2 weeks. We've not seen any mail get to Memphis in less than 2.5 weeks at all. So depending when they renew, now your shops have a bumpy thing. Your shops need managers with all of them. So if it's a shop and the manager's license is expired, suspended, we're stuck. But if not, we can get the shops out pretty quickly too.
Hey.
Have her contact us, definitely.
this is the same situation as
It is,
the
it
previous two, but I just don't want this to be something that we keep seeing over and over and over again.
With this document, that's, I think, the reason that the board said on that they gave me an extra month. If they're within the one extra month, I can approve them. Both the ones that missed the verification eligibility, had we caught them for the May meeting, I would have been able to approve
Okay.
them. But because we didn't for that meeting, they've got that extra 6 weeks.
Okay.
I move that we get Mrs. O'Brien a license.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And next, this is this morning, again, because we don't have a meeting in July, I rarely bring paper and you all don't have a copy of this. This is an applicant that's incarcerated. Mr. James Patterson is not on your iPad, but he's exactly in that situation of the 6 months. He is a master barber, filled out, passed his master barber practical exam in July of 2015. He would have been one of our felony applicants that we approved, and we have that documentation. So between July to now is obviously an awful long time, but it was the verification eligibility. Again, he didn't sign it till May 16th. And this has to do, I think, with being incarcerated, the communication. He thought he was done. Once he passed it, he was ready for his license by the time they communicated with us. So I'm gonna add him to our minutes, and the board would be considering the exact same thing on the barber side, the extension and approval of his license so he wouldn't have to retest while incarcerated.
Extension be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Is the board doing okay? Do we want to break?
Rolling.
Don't have that much more, I think. I think we're in good shape. All right, next on your iPads, you have a request from Ms. Katrisa Dobbs. The board at the February 2016 board meeting considered the release of hours for students who had attended the Center for Cosmetology Education. This is the school that was also Plaza Beauty. And then the other name of the school left me for a minute, that had merged in the Memphis area. So this school actually closed January 31st of 2016. The board's decision was for students to go directly to the school owner or owners and allow the business to resolve these situations on a case-by-case basis. The board decided that if the owner does not assist them or get back with them, then at that point, we would review the student's situation on a case-by-case basis and consider releasing the hours. I have 2 students here on your iPads for review that have attempted to reach Ms. Sparks with Plaza Beauty. And in both cases, they've not been responded to. We've had probably 20, 25 students that have successfully resolved the situation, so we've not even considered releasing hours. Anyone that reaches out to Ms. Ryle, and I know in her case, she released everyone's hours. She didn't go for whatever was owed, she just chose to go down that path. Ms. Sparks had asked us for additional time, and I believe she's been resolving them all. So these are the first 2 that have corresponded, waited past 2 to 3 weeks, I believe is what I've asked. And now it's time for the meeting. They've contacted me. So I have asked to be copied in the emails, and in many situations seen that the hours were released and the situation worked out. So in this particular case, each of the students has the affidavit provided for you. Ms. Dobbs finished going to school in 2013. So if the board approves releasing these hours, she would be put to take the exam. And the next one is Ms. Tate. Ms. Tate is on the same situation. She has 1,500 hours. If the board approves it, she too would be able to take the exam. And the last email that I got over the weekend, but I'm going to, on this one, wait another week if the board approves releasing these to give Ms. Sparks enough time to respond. Her case actually goes back further. She's from 1995. She went to school. Her hours weren't released. Her explanation to me is that it didn't have anything to do with the finances, and actually on the email to Ms. Sparks that it had to do with a situation in the school with an instructor or something. And so her concern, she's gone back and forth with Ms. Sparks but hasn't heard back yet. So as long as I give this one enough time to give the school a chance to respond, the board would be deciding on whether or not to release these hours since the school hasn't assisted the student. At this point, the students are the ones at a loss.
Both of these instances, because they're saying they have 1,500 hours, we are releasing those hours for them to move forward and test?
Yes, as long as the office can vouch that those hours were submitted. So similar to what we've done with other schools. If they're on the monthly hours report for 1,200 hours, then we would not be able to even consider the 1,500. So as long as the hours are there, if the school hasn't tried to make it right and resolve it, that's what the board would decide. Do you want to wait longer? I'm giving them at least 2 weeks to respond. And in most of the cases, I know from the students that they've gotten the hours released, and I can see them being put through to PSI. They've actually put them through themselves. So we've not blocked access from them to add those. We will in the near future, hoping that, by now they've sorted through all that. But these two students, and then this one has just waited longer. She's just not been interested in necessarily pursuing this degree, and now she is.
What I'm hearing, though, is that the school has been trying to operate in good faith, trying to
Absolutely.
resolve things. If they're trying to work in good faith at this point, I understand the apparently as soon as possible, but the students haven't been in a big hurry up until now either. So if we give them just a little bit more time, it may be enough time to resolve it without our action.
I think Ms. Dobbs, now this is all you're seeing, well, hold on, she may have a letter. I think Ms. Dobbs has actually been in contact with the school since October. She's stating here that she has a balance of $612. I mean, she knows that she does, but has not heard back. And that can be the board's decision. Do we want to keep waiting, in which case then in August we can represent it. I can attempt to reach out to the school owner as well and just say, the board is comfortable waiting, but as of August, we'll be releasing them, whatever your decision is. I know all three are wanting at this point to test and think that they've waited.
I would make a motion to have them test, move forward, release their hours.
That's if you can verify them.
And the first two there, absolutely, they're there. I believe with Ms. Chris Schulinger that I don't have them in the system because they go way back, so I'm gonna actually have to ask for the box to get it. But if they're in the system, and it could be that they're in the system but said did not release, so as long as it's been at least 2 to 3 weeks and we can vouch for the hours, that'll still be on the office, the board staff to verify.
We have a motion to release the hours for these two. We have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Is it for the 2 or the 3?
Oh, the third one was the
Yes,
long-term.
this one is
As
the
long
same
as we can
situation.
verify their
The hours.
1,500 hours,
Okay.
let's
That sounds great.
all three. Get them working.
Next individual on your iPads is an affidavit from also a school that's closed. It's from Lyle School. This is Mr. Thai Lee releasing his hours. He attended Lyle School of Cosmetology. The license has been revoked in his case. The monthly hours has shown that he has 564 hours instead of the 600 that he is needing. He went through July of 2014. The board had given us authority to approve and release those all the way through July of 2015 only. So as of that point, anyone that is requesting hours, the board wanted to know about. So his situation in that case of the school revoked, the board did release those hours when we could verify them.
We haven't released these hours just because of the date.
Yes, he came after July of 2015 to ask for them. And some of that may be because they're out of the country,
We just need to make a motion to release what hours we have verified.
and it would be the 564.
I make a motion that we release the hours.
Can,
We have a motion and a second to release. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now we have 2 instructor continuing education extensions, I believe. The first one's for Mr. Brian Fields for an extension on his required continuing education. Mr. Fields has been an instructor since 1998. He placed his instructor license on inactive status almost immediately upon receiving it. The board's records show correspondence between him and the previous executive director regarding his inactive status, and it appears that that situation was resolved. The first time he attended a session was in 2013. And I say that because I don't have the document of him asking for it, but it could be that, like I said, from notes from Ms. Waller, I can see that he was maintained on that inactive status. The first time he went back to active was in 2013, and he took the continuing education. Therefore, he should have gone again by 2015 and did not. He failed to realize that it was right in that 2-year time frame. So he has submitted a letter explaining the situation, and that is on page 111. This would be his one-time extension pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-4-114A, number 2, where an instructor may request this waiver one time.
When will he be up to be renewed again?
Well, he apparently has a job opportunity, so he's actually very excited to be able to do this. I mentioned to him the online class, and that's the next piece I wanted to talk to the board about. As we get these, our goal in the office is going to be to encourage them to do the online if there isn't a class immediately, to reduce on what we need to present to the board. And so that is our goal.
Exciting.
And that is what he is planning on doing. Now, he's already behind because he had to renew by May 30th. So that would be the reason for the extension. But the minute they call, if they can do the online and be timely, then that's the route. If they're already late, then the board may be able to say, yes, you can have an extension, but we've approved online for this. You know, there's no reason to be late.
When he takes this next class, or when we approve his extension, when will he be up for his next one? 2 years from now?
Yes, he's got 2 years, so he'll know, yes.
Okay.
It's a good question.
We have a motion?
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the one-time request. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next is Destiny Lawson. Ms. Lawson's asking for an extension of continuing education. She received her license in June of 2014, so this would have been her first session to attend pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-4-114A, number 2, an instructor just a one-time exception. She submitted a letter explaining that she missed the previous session and will be able to attend and would like to attend the one in July if the board allows it.
Motion to grant the one-time exception?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the one-time exception. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we are going to review our reciprocity applications. Would the board like to take a 15-minute break? Or after the reciprocity, we don't have, and going through the legal committee and the rulemaking, we don't have a lot, but the rulemaking review for the full board may take a little bit. Or take a lunch, whatever you decide.
Let's take a 10-minute break.
It is 12:10. We'll resume at 12:20. Okay, we are back on the record after a short 10-minute break, and we are going to go over the Reciprocity Committee. I will turn it over. Let Mr. Fingers and Ms. Coppinger get in place, and we can motion all 4 applications.
Oh,
Did you want to do a quick
for
recap?
reciprocity? Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yeah, we had,
We heard you had a long meeting.
yeah, 4. 4 reciprocity cases, and so we required 3 of them to take the Tennessee exams, and 1 we granted reciprocity, and that's the end of that.
I move that we accept the reciprocity report.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I validate the complaint committee. They heard 49 complaints, and I'll let Laura do a quick recap. And if anyone saw any concerns or items on the report that was emailed to you, now is also a good time, and we will get a motion at the end of those.
There were questions about 2 cases. One was case 10. And I went back upstairs and reviewed my files, and I did mistakenly write 2016. The license expired November 30th, 2015.
Numbers right, it was just the date.
Yeah, so I had recommended $200, because both licenses were expired. Case 20, I messed up case 20. I confused it with facts from a different case. Okay, this is complicated. Every single one of those former complaints in the complaint history is for unlicensed activity. The reason why this wasn't given revocation is because the facts of this case are that the inspector walked in, the shop license was expired. As soon as he walked in and said, "I'm an inspector," he looked around. There were 4 people there that looked like they were working. There was 1 client. 3 of the people who were in there got up and immediately left. And the 1 guy that was left working did have a license and said that the people that left were his friend. The shop has pretty extensive history, but in this case, we didn't catch anyone working unlicensed. So the real issue is the expired shop license and the sanitation issues. So we can talk about the recommendation for $1,000, whether or not you think that's still appropriate, given the new set of facts.
What was your $1,000 originally for?
For the unlicensed activity, but here, I think, the person that was working was licensed. So the real violations here are the sanitation and the expired shop license. That shop license been expired since November of 2015.
I
don't think so, actually.
So to clear this up for everybody, I was confused because 3 people left the shop, but they were not working on anyone. So they could have been hanging out.
Inspector assumed unlicensed activity because this shop has a really extensive history. And this shop is also owned by someone who owns like 2 other shops, and those shops have extensive history with unlicensed activity. And I think our inspector walked in and marked unlicensed activity, and I confused the facts. He didn't actually witness anyone working unlicensed. Just the shop license was expired. I don't think $100 here is appropriate because this is not a shop where it's the first time they've let something just run expired. But maybe $1,000 might be too high.
Well, I think we need to flag it for, especially like we've done in the past when there are sanitary issues, we flag it for a reinspection, which may lead to other findings.
Flag this for a reinspection, and then given the unlicensed or the expired license and the sanitation, would you want to? Why 600?
Y'all think 500 is fair? Normally, an expired license would be 100.
If they've never had another.
If they've never had another
Right,
situation.
There's plenty history there to indicate.
There's a lot of history for this shop and for the person who owns this shop. Flag for reinspection and assess 500. Okay.
That sounds good. I like that.
I mean, I don't want to be the one who's out to get anybody, but in the past when we have sanitation issues, we always flag for reinspection to make sure that the rules are being followed. So that's not outside of the norm.
Our fees shouldn't be so low that they're just part of doing business. They should.
The other change is on case 29. We raised, the recommendation was $1,500, and we're going to go with $2,000. And that's it.
How do you determine how much you increase? Is there a guideline on how you?
What I recommend.
Yeah, what is your recommendation based?
So the board office, when they give out agreed citations, they have to follow the schedule that the board voted on. So when cases are referred to me, I try to use their schedule as sort of a guideline for myself, and then mitigating factors. Sometimes I'll change it, sometimes I don't. History. So for instance, the first time a shop or a person lets their license expired and they're caught working, that's a $100 fine. The second time it's $250, so on and so forth. I'll just kind of ramp up. But, sometimes it's just what read the report and question me.
Gotcha.
Depending on how soft you're feeling that day when you review it.
Apparently, I didn't realize when I was writing this, I was feeling so generous until you guys started pointing it out.
You were looking at this morning like, where'd I get that number?
So if the board doesn't have any other complaints that you made notes of, we will need a motion to accept, oh, you do, I'm sorry.
I had a question.
Yes, sure.
Let me look at. I had looked at case number 30. What is LOW? Am I just not getting my?
Frank, would you like to define LOW?
Yeah, I gotta go back to it. Yeah, I can. Hold on 1 second, Rob. Letter of
Warning.
warning.
There you go, yes.
Okay,
I apologize. I put
my acronyms
own
aren't working
office
today.
jargon in the
Right.
report.
Something's bad wrong, Ron. You and I are the only two that, it's the only question we had, that was it.
All your initials on a
Was
piece
in
of
trouble, man.
And on
December.
34 and 36, I believe, these were regarding some schools that were having some bad activities, or 34 is the first one.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Again,
Hey.
So there are no instructors there and that kind of thing, or what do we know about that?
33 and 34 were two consumer complaints that
Okay.
were filed around the same time with the same allegations against the same school. They both, I sent out an investigator. The complaints themselves really didn't have that much information, but I always request an investigation when the allegations are that serious, and was fairly shocked when the investigator came back with affidavits from 5 current students willing to sign their name that the person who owns the school was violating a lot. Alcohol on the floor, reducing hours. So as school owners, if someone comes in not in uniform, you can't let them work and then say, but I'm only going to give you half the hours. You send them home if you're really going to stick to it. So he would let them work all day and then say, but you're out of uniform because your shirt's untucked, so I'm going to take away 2 of your hours. But again, so I had 5 students sort of verify that these sort of exploitive type things were going on. But this school has no history except for 1 complaint from 2001, and it's testimony of students versus testimony of the school owner.
Same school owner all these years?
Yeah. That's why, normally if a school had a lot of history and I had that much, I would probably assess some sort of suspension or something, but nothing since 2001. Not even an open complaint closed on a warning. So I think we need to increase our inspections of the school and give that person the fine.
And as the board probably already knows, is sometimes students file complaints when they shouldn't, just because they're angry. Imagine that. And the opposite is also true. Sometimes students don't file complaints
when they
and don't
shouldn't.
let us know because they just want to finish their hours and move on. So the fact that there aren't any doesn't mean that the same thing hasn't been happening. What the inspector found made us both very concerned.
I was shocked that students who still attend the school were willing to say the things that they did. Kind of a great personal risk.
Given the recent history we've had with some schools, I think at the very least we ought to continue to watch 34 and 36, I think is one I saw.
36 is a separate school.
Right.
Yeah, and in that case, that was from a routine inspection where an inspector walked in and students were on the floor with no licensed instructor there.
Didn't we encounter that in a previous school?
We suspended one for that because it was 2 or 3 inspections that
Right, they had multiples.
happened to be running errands while we would show up. So they had to actually hire another instructor because they just didn't have enough to run the floor, and that's, not allowed. Yeah.
I think your fines are stiff enough to at least cause attention to this, hopefully.
Oh, that's fine. Sure. Do you need?
We do need a motion to accept the complaint committee recommendations.
Make a motion to accept?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to accept the complaint committee recommendations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next we are going to look at your, the consent orders. And for the month of May, the board office took in $9,750 worth of civil penalties through consent orders. I will need a motion to accept all those.
Make the motion to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The agreed citations had a typo and the math wasn't adding right, so we played with it at the end, and then I forgot to load the final version. So you all have in paper before you the cases for May's agreed citations. They totaled $6,600. I will also need a motion for that, and I apologize, it's not on your iPads.
Make a motion to accept the agreed citations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept agreed citations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, you have the two LOLs on your iPads. The
LOW.
page-
LOWs.
LOW.
Frank knows what LOL is.
I would have had to ask that one. I'd have put an M after the LO.
On page 124. We will need a motion for that as well.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Second.
Ms. Graham. We have a motion and a second to accept. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Fantastic. Okay, so the last piece for, the fun piece for last, and then we are done. The rulemaking committee met this time. I know Ms. Barger was very upset to not be able to come, so I will be sending her everything we discussed, as well as everybody else through email. We don't have a meeting in July. The next meeting is August the 8th, I believe, which is the second Monday in August, because there isn't one in September. So by August, I hope that through what Laura's gonna update, what we discussed today, we'll get everyone an email with so far what we're looking at for these rules, give everyone a chance to do some research, find out what else you think would concern us. And this is strictly about the public chapter that passed adding the mobile salons. And so we talked about the rules for that, because effective January 1st, the law goes into effect. So it's been passed, but it needs rules. So it gives us that timeline to get this moving. So I will turn it over to Laura. We kind of chunked the issues into 3, and she can summarize everything we talked about. And I'll jump in.
So, yeah, I gave the rule committee a copy of drafted rules that I had come up with a little bit of help, and we came up with the idea that there's 3 major areas. One is going to be defining the relationship between the mobile salon and the primary permanent shop. The second was going to be how we're going to inspect these shops, and then the third was going to be what type of equipment is required in the shops. I don't think you guys took out anything, but we did add the idea that maybe the mobile salons should have GPS that would allow our inspectors to find them when they want to do a pop-up inspection. We talked about the necessity of having external signage and the license on the outside of the mobile salon, so that anyone walking into a van, as Frank put it, isn't like just walking into a creepy van and they can see that they're licensed by the board. We also talked about the idea that mobile salons are probably going to be very niche, specific. So I had the idea of allowing, or the board giving the executive director the authority to waive certain equipment requirements to accommodate a mobile salon that's offering maybe just 1 or 2 services, as opposed to making them have everything that we would normally require of a full shop. My plan is to update my draft of rules with all of the stuff that the committee talked about from my notes, and then send out a draft to the whole board. So hopefully in August we can approve this to get started. Rulemaking usually takes a really long time. I think that this is too in-depth to skip the rulemaking hearing, but I have asked my chief counsel about possibly emergency rules, because I think that's the only way these are going to be effective in time for January, which means they go into effect and then later we have the rulemaking hearing. It's not ideal. We have to prove it's necessary, so we'll see. Is there anything else I'm missing that anyone would like to add?
Got it. This may seem kind of minor, but on your first page, A, what about, first of all, the person that's going to operate this vehicle have a driver's license?
Or valid.
Or
right?
valid.
Yeah, we can add that.
First. What it's
Only
given.
thing is, does that mean
That-
that a person who can't drive couldn't hire a driver but still manage the shop?
I really understand it, but you'd be surprised.
No, but I think what he's asking is that at least the vehicle be driven by a somebody with a legal,
License.
Or maybe they
Right.
go under registration, the vehicle being registered.
Yeah, we could, I guess.
They kind of bring up something else
Does
too.
that all fall under somebody else's?
Does the vehicle need to be registered under the manager or the primary salon owner? And does the yeah. And the person that buying the vehicle, would they have to be the manager? Or could I buy it and give it to you?
it may be
and then-
leased by the brick and mortar owner.
Yeah.
Are
mean-
we trying to say that we want the vehicle, whatever it is, to be property licensed for the road use, and the person that's operating it, or moving it,
Right,
needs to
and-
be licensed?
And I'm saying, I'm thinking all the time it's a given, but you'd be surprised.
Keep in mind that the shop is going to, it can't be moving when services are being provided. It has to be parked somewhere, so we can definitely put that in there, but, yeah.
But really,
But no one's gonna be
falls under the
driving.
division of motor vehicle when it's getting to where it's going, does it not?
Yes. If they don't have a license and they're stopped, that is a jurisdiction out way bigger than ours, and
Is there any regulation on the size? I mean, it could be anything from an enclosed van to a semi-truck. I mean,
unless the board decides, there's no limit here.
and it can be driven anywhere in the state. Is that right?
But then-
Driven anywhere at all.
Anywhere, yeah.
But if they're in the state, they have to be licensed by us to do whatever they want to do that's under the statute.
A creepy van.
Yeah, but you have to be,
Frank about how he keeps track of his children.
you have to have a license.
GPS, man.
You get licensed to drive whatever kind of vehicle it is. Not, that doesn't fall under us.
Doesn't fall under us.
There was, I think, two that maybe fall under a safety equipment kind of thing. Do we want to let them use electric generators, or some states I see say they cannot plug into a house, they can't drag extension cords from a house or a business, that it has to either be a generator or self-energized.
I don't know.
If
I
it-
think it's very interesting. On Austin, Texas, they have a food truck court, where they're food trucks, but they don't go anywhere. So someone is making money off of renting the land, right? Essentially leasing it. And I think in that, yeah, it's interesting. And I think you might see those communities or opportunities here in Nashville with our food trucks and having sort of a retail center that's full of mobile but non-moving vehicles. And at that point, they might offer electricity to their tenants.
Like any other mobile home park.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So I don't
other
know.
side of that coin was if they're using an electric generator to get their power, what I've seen in some of these is that they have to have that generator outside of the working compartment so that those fumes aren't inside. You would think they'd do it anyway, but people will.
You know what I would love to see is some sort of just, I don't think I need that 200-page document, but the food truck guidelines, just because I'm sure that someone has talked about that kind of stuff, but it's not the Food and Beverage Administration, right, who's inspecting actually the car or the truck, I would think. They're not inspecting the actual vehicle. They're only inspecting what's on the vehicle, right?
Vehicle, like for their brakes
Department
and.
of
Yeah, or-
Transportation, if, it depends on where you live, like in our part of the state, they closed down all the vehicle inspection stations.
But how different is that than a brick and mortar that if we have an electrician that like pipe wires wrong or something, and I mean that doesn't really fall under our. I mean, because I think that could be dangerous what he's saying, but isn't that a stretch for our responsibility?
Yeah, it's just something I saw. in
No,
some
it's, I
others.
mean, it's great information. The thing is, where does it end as
Brick
far
and
as?
mortar, you'll rarely, we don't go into it that intensely.
That's
but
my point.
I know recently, they inspected a shop where like these little tiles up in the ceiling were missing. And I marked that as unsanitary,
Not that, I mean, I
because I
ripped,
think it's unsanitary.
I ripped all mine out. I'm real unsanitary then. I ripped them all out and left the grid and spray painted them.
Yeah,
I don't think that's what she's saying,
yeah.
though.
No, she's saying it's just kind of left there.
Made
like-
it look cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is different.
I don't think this was cool.
Well, if the right ones are missing, it could look cool.
If it's clean, but this wasn't like a cleaned out way. There's no way for our inspector to, like, when they walk in your shop, our inspector can look up and see the ceiling
Right.
and see that you don't have anything gross dripping down from whoever lives above you. But here, it was just random tiles were missing.
They were probably stained and removed
can't
and not,
see
yeah.
up- I mean-
All right, that's not cool. But,
So sure, if we're inspecting a truck and we walk in and we see an obvious dangerous condition, they'll cite them they'll cite them for unprofessional conduct for all but I don't know that we want to really get into the specifics of the department will think it's an
I
overregulation.
think that those trucks, once they get going, these mobiles, that there will be things that we will hear about, and we're just not in front of it. Maybe take this month to, start investigating those things, because we have a traveling event that we do on for Caesar's Entertainment, and we go on their properties. And it took us a good 2 years to kind of figure out how to do all of that. But so much of it is really dictated and mandated by their legal and insurance. And not very many people, I feel like, could actually even do those events because they couldn't afford the insurance that we have to do. But we do have some traction on it, and so it works out real well for us. But, I mean, you may even find this, that certain places where these mobile places go to park, they're going to have their own rules. Different municipalities are going to have their own rules. So I think those things are out there, and we'll hear about them and learn about them as we proceed. I think those things will change too. We can't really over-regulate this. As long as it's a safe environment for someone to have one of our services in these vehicles.
inspectors might be happy that if anybody's in there that shouldn't be, they can't run out the back door of the van, can they? Trapped in a corner, man, gotcha. Yeah, exactly.
Silver lining, Frank. You just found it.
There you go.
I can research and see if I can find the food truck guidelines.
It might even be online. I mean,
I
for
don't-
someone.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe a caveat in there that just,
I don't think it's totally a bad idea if we made sort of it can't be vague, but it could be broad enough as in a way that you can't expose customers to a dangerous condition related to
Emissions. You might find it in the state emissions, something like that, yeah.
Obviously, the biggest difference from the food trucks is that, you don't get on the food truck bus. At least the ones I've seen. But this is a little different. To your point, the creepy van.
Yeah.
Come on in.
yeah, and even with the signage, is it gonna, I mean, should it be something that says it needs to be legible from, because somebody can then just throw a little sentence on there and, you
Is there
know,
a sign code for
is that-
Our
shops?
sign code, the only place we've added, size is for the apprenticeship that's working in the salon. It has to be 8.5 by 10, whatever the standard is. But like our homes, it just says visible signage. So some of the homes that people go into actually choose the name of their shop to be their home address, so that the homeowner associations won't catch them. So it's all kinds of things, so.
Salon 1645.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. And it doesn't even look like a sign, because nothing in the statute says it must stand up, it must be it must light, nothing like that. So we can put it in there, but we haven't for other things, such as the home, so.
Couldn't. I mean, if somebody's not sure what it is because they can't read the sign,
Go in
I'm
it.
thinking you shouldn't go in there.
Also, the license visible from the outside.
Yeah, I like that.
That way they're walking up, even if the sign isn't clear, if the license is visible as you're walking through the van door.
Sides, on at least two sides. So, whatever. And facing east, and the inspector only sees the west side.
Since it's attached to a salon, it should have the salon's license on it permanently, maybe on the outside.
I just think you have to have it displayed. I don't think we say where.
Well, if you require the outside, then if it's missing, it was stolen or vandalized. I think
Yeah.
it's got to be visible from a window from the inside, so it can be protected. Anytime we've done decals or anything on the outside of windows, I mean, it gets peeled off, it gets written on, it's not good.
Okay, so you're gonna send us that?
Yeah, I'm gonna add.
Okay.
Everything.
Got ideas, questions? I'm
We
sorry.
just get extended because we forgot the deadline, like everybody else.
Feel free to email me directly with questions and ideas so that I can start shooting them off. Laura, we can kind of have something to hand you in August. We probably won't have the application in August because we're finalizing so many other things, but that's not gonna hold up the rules. We're just gonna put that the application has to, be approved by the board, that kind of thing. And then we will tweak it. September, we don't have a meeting, but October, November, we can get it actually finished and looking exactly the way we want. The questions we want can always be on that application. If we've got specific questions and have a reason to collect them, we can go that route, so.
Is the board meeting the 1st or the 8th of August?
It's the 8th.
Okay.
It's the 8th. Nothing in September, and then I think October and November is definitely that first Monday. Always check online, and then in October, we'll vote for the 2017 dates as well. So we'll that meeting to have your calendars. Just a quick note before, I don't think we've got anything else major. If you have signed up to do a continuing education session, I think, Mr. Fingers, you're on the next one, right? The next weekend, and I'll be there too. Make sure to contact the school, the seminar representatives. And
I
let
have
them
a
know you're
calendar conflict with the one that I signed up for.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it's supposed to be September 9th and 10th.
Yeah, and I brought it with me just to make sure everybody was still okay. So, yeah, when we adjourn, Ms. Appleby, I'll go over it with you. I've got it here somewhere so we
Okay,
can
so
see.
somebody else can go.
And I was supposed to be doing something in October, but I forgot where.
I'm just glad I'm not the only one.
October 9th and 10th. Ms. Granger, it's the educator seminar.
Okay.
And the date and link and everything's on our website, so that's yours. And Ms.
Educator seminar?
The Educators Success Seminar. It's October 9th and 10th
Is that
with Ms.
Miss Pearl
Stephanie Brown.
Walker's? Oh, that's Stephanie Brown's.
And Ms. Sappenfield, I have you on Ms. Pearl's. You're not gonna be able to? Okay. And that is in September.
What is your,
It's October.
Mr. Gambusa, the one in July is gonna work out for you? You weren't 100% certain the last time we spoke. Tennessee University. July 17th and 18th.
Back from us?
Knoxville, But you
Sorry.
told me it
I'll
would, or you'd let me, but you weren't.
All right. I'll
Just
check on as
check
soon
your
as I get out of
calendar.
here.
Those are the next two that I know we have to confirm.
July what?
July 17th and 18th, University of Tennessee Conference Center, and it's in Knoxville.
Get your people to call.
Okay. Like people call your people.
I've got nothing else if we want to consider a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Anybody want to talk about it? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.